TikTok. So who the fuck knows what's going to happen? But anyway, that's so my point being is that we don't know the future here in this space. So if you are going to consider subscribing, please consider subscribing to factsdon'tmatter.site. Also, in the link tree that is in my bio, you can find access to our Discord. Joining our Discord is absolutely free. But if you are also, that's where all of our information that we talk about in the show, live sources. We have a mutual aid channel. Basically, it's where the action is. But if you subscribe to our channel, you can also go to the merch store that's part of factsdon'tmatter.site. So if you ever want to pick up some really cool merch items that we have there, you might as well subscribe because you get 10% off. And if you subscribe annually, you get 15% off. So again, everybody, thank you all for being here. I'm honored to welcome our early riser. Felice is up before the roosters are up. Felice is up before anything's up. Good morning, my friend. Are you feeling liberated?
Can you hear me?
I can now.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
Oh, sorry. I couldn't see myself. Okay, there we go. Yeah. Oh, I feel so liberated. I feel so amazing. I did not rise. I never went to sleep. I've been reading mathematicians and economists all around. I'm fascinated by the conversation going on online. Yeah. So I just figured, why not sleep? I feel so free from, financial security. Free from long-term and short-term sanity. I've never been freer in my life.
I know. I'm sort of feeling the same way. Just as an FYI, friends, the futures, the Wall Street futures are down roughly 1,200 points. The expectation is that the market will open 1,200 points down. And I think the timing was interesting yesterday that they waited for the market to close before they made these tariff announcements. And we'll get into all that because it is crazy. I'm not even really sure where to begin, but since I know you've been up all night, Felice, and I know you've got a lot on your mind. So why don't you just jump in your first thoughts, your first reaction, and we can go from there because I've got a lot of stuff I want to get into.
Who was not happy to be liberated from their 401k? I mean, it's been weighing us all down. Don't you guys worry. I wanted to be liberated from my pittance of savings, and now it has happened.
Which is part of this. I mean, the fact that American conservatives literally have no spine. I've got some audio that I want to play. Well, let me do that first because I think
do the audio and then we can.
It's really telling because there's.
First, can I say something? Let's do some tapping today. Let's take out our anxiety, rage, aggression, laugh so you don't cry, and tap that screen. Let's get to 25K as fast as possible. Tapping is clapping. I'm so glad to be here. I love being part of this community and being able to join occasionally. Thanks for having me. Fax is so amazing. So let's tap that screen and show them we care.
Thank you.
I cashed out my 401k too. I don't have a 401k, by the way. That was just sarcasm. So I'm sorry. I'm answering someone's comment. Someone said they cashed their 401k out when it was worth something. Yeah. When I disappeared into South America, I cashed my 401k out.
When I went into business for myself, that's what I used to get started.
Exactly.
So I hear you.
Yeah, no, I don't have any financial future. Just in case anyone was curious, this is it right here.
Right here, right now. So, leading up to members of his administration have not really addressed this. You've seen some responses in Congress where members of Rand Paul in particular has kind of stepped up and said, like, dude, what the fuck are you doing? So he's been saying that all along. I very rarely, I have to watch.
No, it's like, it's so strange. It's like also like agreeing with Anna Paulina lunatic. It's like, I guess this is where we're at now.
Exactly. So this is kind of a compilation of previous elected officials, primarily those in the Senate, and their responses to Trump's plan the first time, not only when he was campaigning, but also during his first administration, their reactions to tariffs. So again, I know that since Felice is here, I know some of her fans are going to be in the chat. And I'm going to have my MAGA, my friends who love me so much. Kiss, kiss. Good morning, guys. So while you're here, I'd like you to listen to what members of your own party have said about tariffs.
The tariff is a tax on Americans. A tariff isn't paid by the exporter. China's not going to pay the tariff. The buyer is going to pay the tariff.
Donald Trump has proposed a 40% tariff, which is a tax on all of you. I think raising your taxes by 40% would kill jobs all across this country.
I have never agreed with the president's tariff policy, and that's why I do call him and I say, Mr. President, I need to talk to you about these tariffs. And he will come back and he'll say, oh, Joni, I know that you don't like tariffs, but I'm a tariff guy.
Taxing European car imports hurts BMW because they can do the same thing to us. China wins when we fight with Europe. China wins when the American consumer has higher prices because of tariffs that don't affect Chinese behavior.
Now with a 10% tariff laid down, who pays that tariff? The American workers and the American companies pay the brunt of all those. So far, Americans have paid $12 billion in tariffs.
Oh, no.
It's not punishing the Chinese. It's punishing us.
You know, the highest tariff levels in the history of this country, the Smoot-Hawley tariffs, were enacted, and it shut down world trade. There's little doubt that these protectionist barriers that were put up in 1930 or 31 made the Great Depression worse. So let's not repeat that mistake.
I hope that our administration is looking at ways to expand and grow opportunities for American businesses and farmers and ranchers, and not get us into this tit-for-tat trade war with some of these countries, even China.
A generalized tariff that would actually harm allies, harm American consumers, by the way. And again, if we start engaging in trade wars, I just don't believe anybody wins a trade war, quite honestly. I just think there's so much collateral damage. I think it's a very risky and dangerous strategy.
I'm much more of a free trader. I have worry about retaliation against our products that certainly we have a lot of in Wyoming. So I'm focused on the businesses here at home, the impact of trade, and the impact of tariffs, which I have concerns about, and specifically the retaliation that may come as a result of this new announcement.
Strong trade relationships, particularly with Canada and Mexico, are primary drivers of our nation's economy. We must protect those relationships and be careful as we consider changes in our approach to trade to be certain that Americans continue to benefit from the economic opportunities that have created by a strong trade policy.
So, what did we learn from that, Felice?
That Republicans could not follow a line of logic, and hypocrisy is the point. That's what we're seeing now, is that they don't stand on anything, right? I mean, this is not about a set of belief systems or being fiscally conservative. It's about whatever narrative is most convenient to consolidate power and wealth at the top of the economy. Period.
That's exactly right. Since the entire Republican economic plan, in air quotes, has been about decreasing taxes for billionaires, cutting corporate tax rates, and to supplement that, you have to cut spending. And we'll talk about that in just a second. And then to supplement that, you need to figure out a way to increase revenue. In Trump's mind, if you want to call it a mind, it's all about tariffs. So when you double down, when you literally have no economic policy or no political agenda other than harming people, you are all in. They've got no choice now. Now we saw Mitch McConnell and Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins and somebody else
Rand
stand up, and it's right. And it was Rand stand up recently to say, listen, obviously it's not going to go anywhere because Trump's not going to sign it into law. It's not going to pass the House. But this is where we are now. So that was Ted Cruz, and that was
and
Rubio,
just tell them
Joni Ernst.
So just to clarify what Fax is talking about, because it's important yesterday, because if you had asked me, I wasn't sure if it would pass, right? I mean, and you could say this performative, you can say whatever you want, but it's a sign of one of the first times Republicans have bucked Trump in the Senate, right?
Correct.
So 4 Republican senators joined with the Democrats yesterday to pass a bill to stop Trump. Like we were talking about, the last time we funded the government, what the fight was over was all the poison pills that were baked into that continued resolution. One was Trump can continue doing this BS with the tariffs, manipulating the economy with his insane tariffs through the end of the fiscal year, through September 30th. That's why we wanted to shut the government down, to stop this nightmare from happening right now. So again, I want to acknowledge when people are being performative. I mean, is this a little bit performative? Fax is absolutely right. Is Trump ever going to sign it into law? No, probably not. Are the Republicans in the House, can they get the votes? I don't know, but I will tell you this, the more pressure we put on them, the more we get into the streets. I called like every House member in Arizona, and I was just like, you will be unseated. People will not forget that when the American people needed you most, right? And we can get into this later, but I was reading the JP Morgan prospectus that came out last night. Oh, dear God. I mean, they literally don't even know what to say. So let's say Trump promised tax cuts for everyone. We know that's a lie, right? Unless you make over $360,000 a year when it comes to federal taxes, you're not even getting a tax cut when it comes to federal taxes. But now, what he did yesterday is the largest tax increase and per JP Morgan since 1968. They literally are like, at this time, we cannot even begin to assess the damage this will do to the American economy. They're thinking by Q2, Q3, we're in Q1, people, that the average American will have no spending income. This is a consumption economy. If we do not have the money to consume, our economy crashes.
First of all, I would like to acknowledge something, that Felice has been up all night and she's digging into JP Morgan economic analysis. So if you cannot gift her for that alone, then I don't know what the hell you're thinking. Her pay apps are in her bio, I'm assuming. So please.
My Cash App and Venmo is just like my name. A girl has no name, just like it's spelled in my account. Thank you so much, Vex. That's nice of you.
So speaking of that, so this is what the twice impeached, four-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster felon said yesterday after we just discussed what four members of the Senate said. Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Rand Paul, also of Kentucky, will hopefully get on the Republican bandwagon for a change and fight the Democrats' wild and flagrant push to not penalize Canada for the sale into our country of large amounts of the F drug by tariffing the value of this horrible and deadly drug in order to make it more costly to distribute and buy. They are playing with the lives of the American people and right into the hands of the radical left Democrats and the drug cartels. The Senate bill is just a ploy of the Dems to show and expose the weakness of certain Republicans, namely these four, in that it is not going anywhere because the House will never approve it, and I, as your president, will never sign it, as we just discussed. Why are they allowing the F drug to pour into our country unchecked and without penalty? What is wrong with them, other than suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, commonly known as TDS? Who can want this to happen to our beautiful families, and why? To the people of the great states of Kentucky, Alaska, and Maine, please contact these senators and get them to finally adhere to Republican values and ideals. They have been extremely difficult to deal with and unbelievably disloyal to hardworking Majority Leader John Thune and the Republican Party itself. Make America great again.
Almost to 50K. Keep tapping the screen. You guys are doing a great job. Tap that rage out. No, yeah, I mean, we were talking about this. Why is he naming those senators? Those were the ones. And if you know, like Steve Bannon has been talking about them, that those were the ones that were going to buck leadership and have nothing to lose and vote with Democrats, right? So, I mean, and then John Thune, I have it up here. Let me just read it. John Thune said on this Senate bill passing, it just mirrors Trump. Quote, will the cartels simply shift tactics and expand their operations to the north? He said, adding, I think we can be confident the answer to that question is yes. I mean, and if you're in here, MAGA, I'm going to help you with this because I know you can't find your way out of a paper bag. If you believe this line of logic, they are making a fool of you, right? This is about the F drug. How tired are your backs from dragging the goalposts on them? Remember when tariffs were a tax on other countries and they owed us money and they were going to pay us? Now we've gone through several different iterations that are in short-term gain short-term pain for long-term gain. Right. Goalposts moving again. Now, then it was, this is about trade deficits. This is about trade deficits, which I've been reading a bunch of mathematicians, they've been trying, because Trump's like, we've done all these calculations about these tariff rates, because mathematicians and economists all over the world are like, this makes no sense. This is not based on tariff rates and, and like the licensing and the other fees attached to tariffs from other countries. These are not reciprocal tariffs. Oh yeah, I'll get to that too. That's what we need to talk about. And that's because what it's based on is very simple. It is quite literally just what Trump says is the trade deficit with that country divided by their imports to America, their imports to this country.
It's like census data and a whole bunch of other.
That's it. That's all it is.
Exactly.
And mathematicians were saying, and economists were saying that, but and people this is how people in the White House. They can't do math, and I'm not great at detailed economic math equations. You know what I mean? The ones that involve Greek symbols and all these things. But they literally, so mathematicians and economists are online saying, oh, we figured it out. This is how it's calculated. It has nothing to do with what Trump said. He has no idea what he's talking about, or he's lying. And White House communications people are responding and being like, that's not true. Here's the formula. And they give this like complicated looking formula, and the mathematicians are like, yes, well, it's very clear you don't understand economic math because the formula you just posted breaks down to exactly what we just said.
Well, I know you pay attention to what he says and how he says it. When he capitalizes things in his True Social posts, it's by design to say, listen, I'm about to lie to you, but I want to make sure that you know that I'm lying to you because the mainstream media is going to call me out of this bullshit. Notice in that entire thread that I just read, he only talks about the cartels and the F drug. He doesn't talk about the reason that these 4 senators voted against this was because we don't want to be, we have our allies. Our trading partners, this budget surplus or this trade deficit that he talks about with Canada. Mr. Global did a great video on this yesterday that I duetted. It's about how much oil we buy from them. I mean, it's really simple. It's just basic economics. We depend on Canadian oil, and it's turned into this nightmare. So again, he talks about radical left Democrats, the drug cartels, the F drug. It's got nothing to do with what the reason that they voted against is for, which that's the dangerous part. Like you say, the susceptibility of our friends on the right to actually believe this is a good thing.
They're going to learn today. This is MAGA's first econ lesson today. You're going to learn today, MAGA, what tariffs really do. Enjoy. I'm sure you're learning looking at your retirement account. Turns out you were lied to.
Well, Stormrider, you say, there's no tariffs on Russia, there's no tariff on Russia.
What?
Because we don't trade with them, though. That's probably
what? Why. I'm shocked.
Yeah. No, we don't trade with them. We have
this.
We have sanctions against them, but we don't trade with them. So that's part of what they weren't mentioned in that long list. But I thought what I would do is just because this gets discussed a lot, the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act.
I was going to say this is Smoot-Hawley vibes all over. Wait, before you do the Smoot-Hawley thing, can I
go for it?
Because we were talking about whether or not Trump is dumb, an idiot. I always say, is he an idiot or is he, a pathological liar? I suspect it's a cross between both. But I just want to play this clip I found that was on MSNBC. I mean, this is a real book that someone just wrote about this subject. Listen to this.
Staffers at the White House have low opinions of the president's intelligence. There are many creative words. Quote, Trump didn't read. He didn't really even skim. If it was print, it might as well not exist. Some believed that for all practical purposes, he was no more than semi-literate. For Steve Mnuchin and Reince Priebus, he was an idiot. For Gary Cohn, he was dumb as blank.
F.
For H.R. McMaster, he was a dope. And the list went on. Wolf also writes this, quote, in April, an email originally copied to more than a dozen people went into far wider circulation when it was forwarded and re-forwarded, purporting to represent the views of Gary Cohn and quite succinctly summarizing the appalled sense in much of the White House. This is what the email said, quote, it's worse than you can imagine. An idiot surrounded by clowns. Trump won't read anything, not one-page memos, not the brief policy papers, nothing.
Yeah, so I mean, we all know that, but I just want to confirm a book has now just been published about the Trump's inner circle. Again, they'll be like, "This is liberal propaganda." No, these are Republicans being quoted about the man they worked for and still allegedly pledged loyal to. You guys are following a literal. It's the blind leading the blind, who couldn't read even if they weren't blind. So congratulations.
Yeah, they don't care, Felice. Okay, so just briefly, this is kind of what the Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act from 1930 is and what it did. U.S. legislation that raised import duties to protect American businesses and farmers, adding considerable strain to the international economic climate of the Great Depression. The act takes its name from its chief sponsor, Senator Reed Smoot of Utah, chairman of the Senate Finance Committee, and Representative Willis Hawley of Oregon, chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee. It was the last legislation under which the U.S. Congress set actual tariff rates. The Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act raised the United States' already high tariff rates. In 1922, Congress had enacted the Fordney-McCumber Act, which was among the most punitive protectionist tariffs passed in the country's history, raising the average import tax to some 40% tax. The Fordney-McCumber tariff prompted retaliation from European governments, but did little to dampen U.S. prosperity. Throughout the 1920s, however, as European farmers recovered from World War I and their American counterparts faced intense competition and declining prices because of overproduction, U.S. agriculture interests lobbied the federal government for protection against agricultural imports. In his 1928 campaign for the presidency, Republican candidate Herbert Hoover promised to increase tariffs on agricultural goods, but after he took office, lobbyists from other economic sectors encouraged him to support a broader increase. Although an increase in tariffs was supported by most Republicans, an effort to raise import duties failed in 1929, largely because opposition from centrist Republicans in the U.S. Senate. In response to the stock market crash of 1929, however, protectionism gained strength. And through the tariff legislation subsequently passed by a narrow margin, 44 to 42 in the Senate, it passed easily in the House, despite a petition from more than 1,000 economists urging him to veto the legislation. Hoover signed the bill into law on June 17, 1930. Within 2 years, some 24 countries adopted similar beggar by thy neighbor duties, making worse an already beleaguered world economy and reducing global trade. U.S. imports from and exports to Europe fell by some 2/3 between 1929 and 1932, while overall global trade declined by similar levels in the 4 years that legislation was effected. To summarize this, some observers have argued that the tariff, by deepening the Great Depression, may have contributed to the rise of political extremism, enabling leaders such as the H-Man to increase their political strength and gain power. That's an example of isolationism, American first, protectionism, the demise of policies put in place that domestic policies put in place by our lawmakers made the Great Depression worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Sound familiar?
And let me give us, because this is a lot of doom and gloom, but laugh so you don't cry and just understand knowledge is power. But I do want to say there is a little silver lining here. And if you want to know why, and I'm not going to say I consider Rand Paul the smartest person, but he is on the right side of this. Not because I believe he's so noble, but out of necessity, right? Because history has already borne out what happens. Listen to this quote by Rand Paul. He's specifically talking about what happened in the late 1800s up until the Smoot-Hawley disaster and what happened to their party as a result of it.
Tariffs have also led to political decimation. When McKinley most famously put tariffs on in 1890, they lost 50% of their seats in the next election. When Smoot-Hawley put on their tariff in the early 1930s, they lost the House and the Senate for 60 years. So they're not only bad economically, they're bad politically.
Yep. He said Smoot-Hawley. I was like, am I crazy? It's Smoot-Hawley, but yeah, that's the point. The last time they made this mistake, because these are regressive tax, right? We talk a lot about conservative and progressive, right? That's why if federal income tax is a progressive tax, right? Because it's regressive tax harm the lowest in the poorest among us. Right? That's what tariffs are. It takes a larger percentage of your income. We have to buy goods. And when we have tariffs, it decimates the capital available to the middle and lower classes. And that's why we switched. In Trump's speech, he literally sat there and said, I don't know why we went away from that. This is literally why. They lost everything. They lost power.
Oh, and by the way, he did say Thailand again and then correct.
I saw him. I know. And I was clipping and I didn't record it, but I did say Thailand yet again. The man cannot read. Watching him hold up that chart and try to he had no idea what those numbers meant.
No idea.
None at all, or how they got there.
No idea. Yep. But we've talked about this before, and I know you've talked about it too. So we talk about, I always tell folks when they join us, everybody, by the way, please keep tapping and sharing. Please don't forget to gift Felice. And
almost to 100K. We can do it. Keep going. You guys are doing amazing. Let's get a lot of taps today. You know, when you feel totally out of control, so you want to accomplish one small goal, so you feel like you're in control of something. That's how I feel about likes today. We can't control anything else, but we can tap the screen for Steve.
We're supposed to feel liberated. I'm not quite there yet. I don't know about you, but
I am. I've been liberated from my financial future.
We talk about how I always tell my audience, everybody, when I say follow the what, they always answer the question, follow the money. So this is another example. You know, we think about, like I think I'm convinced that, the Trump administration wants the market to contract, wants a recession, because again, the people that are in position of power to scoop up all that wealth is lost is the billionaire class. They're the ones that will continue to enrich themselves. So this is potentially by design, because they know the impact this is going to have on the consumer. This is like the biggest tax hike since World War II. That's what this is, right? And what I find fascinating, right, is that let me just play this, because this is Scott Bessent. He talked about this, and I think this is the point that I'm about.
His interview with Caitlin Collins was a train wreck.
Oh, it was horrible.
Train wreck. I mean, you can see this is a real economist who's essentially had his wings clipped, has no power. Howard Nutlick is now in Trump's ear, and that forever to be known as Howard Nutlick. His name, I don't know why it never occurred to me until at 3 a.m. that his name is not Lutnick, it's Nutlick from now on.
It totally is. So, Scott Bessent, who went on Fox to discuss Liberation Day, again, a George Soros protege, I want you to listen to what he says, because as we always say, there's words matter. And there's always a hidden meaning to what it is that they're talking about.
Down across the board. People are looking at their 401ks and they worry about it. What do you say to them tonight?
Brett, I say that what we are doing is we're setting the stage for long-term economic growth, that we were on our way to a financial crisis. You know, I used to teach a history of financial crises, and with that gigantic government spending, it was unsustainable. You look back in 1998, you look back in 2007, right before it looked great, everything collapsed. So, I mean, it looked great right before everything collapsed. So we have taken us off that trajectory, and we are putting ourselves back onto a sound trajectory.
You said 10% over 10 years would be $2.5 trillion coming in. You know, you look at this list of all these countries, and there's some policy decisions here. China is at 34%, added to the 20% already, so that's 54% on Chinese goods.
Yes.
Are they going to come back with something big?
Well, we'll see what they do. Is my advice to every country right now.
My advice to every country,
is do not retaliate. Sit back. Take it in. Let's see how it goes, because if you retaliate, there will be escalation. If you don't retaliate, this is the high watermark.
So also,
can I say something real quick? Because you know what he's doing, and it's fascinating to watch this, because he said Bessent did a series of interviews, because this is this man's in charge of the U.S. Treasury and has no control, no say. There's a madman in control. And the more, you know what he's saying, like as the child of a malignant narcissist, he's literally saying, don't poke the bear. He's like saying, listen, I can't get off this train and I have no control. Don't do anything, or this is only going to get worse, so this crazy person can prove a point.
So those are more or less the highlights of that interview. But I want to ask you this question, Felice, because part of their strategy, as we know, is not only the tax cuts for the richest among us, but the tariff. There's the tariff element to try to supplement the loss in revenue. If they want to cut spending, then why are they asking for a debt limit increase, Felice? Why do they want to raise the debt limit to the tune of $5 trillion? Why? Why have they not shown us any spending cuts other than social service programs? Why would that be, Felice?
No, it's so weird. I don't know, lies, hypocrisy, but I mean, that's the point. Like during Trump's speech yesterday, there was this moment, which I think there's a lot of really telling moments where Trump the thing about narcissists is you just got to listen, believe them. They're telling you the truth. And he said, we're going to take care of our people first. When Trump says, I'm going to make people richer, I'm going to take care of people, he's talking about him and the people that he's working with, right? Him and other billionaires, nobody else. Trump, and think about, that's how Trump runs businesses. He leaves them in shambles. He leaves all the contractors and people that worked for him holding the bag, bankrupt, and he leaves with money. In Trump's mind, that's a win. He doesn't care if everybody else has nothing. The point is for him to leave with something, and the people he chooses to allow to leave with something. That's exactly what he's doing, exactly how he runs a business, runs it into the ground, takes a bunch of money, and leaves somebody else holding the bag.
So part of the Senate Republicans released their budget blueprint with new tax cuts and a $5 trillion debt limit hike. Revised budget resolution calls for a $1.5 trillion tax cut in addition to making Trump's 2017 tax cuts permanent and using a controversial budgeting approach critics call magic math. They hope to adopt the plan in the coming days to instruct committees to begin work at a massive bill to pass Trump's agenda on taxes, immigration funding, and other priorities. Senate Republicans are using the budget reconciliation process to evade this, which is likely not going to work because the person in charge of that in the Senate is likely going to see right through this. You use the budget, the parliamentarian in the budget, because they're the ones that ultimately can determine whether or not something can be, especially budgetary, can be voted on, void of the filibuster. And it's very unlikely that that's going to work, but we'll see. Anyway, to get past the 60 vote hurdle in the chamber, they hold the majority of 53-47. Republicans are using a controversial new accounting method known as current policy baseline to score the cost of a Trump tax cut extension at $0. Democrats have slammed it as magic math that papers over the multi-trillion-dollar cost of extending those cuts, and they're exploring their options to challenge the approach. The Senate budget resolution includes a $5 trillion debt limit increase. Why then, conservatives, because you all have no spine, if you're talking about saving money for the American consumer, if you're talking about reducing spending, if you're talking about the growth and wealth that we're all going to be able to experience, then why would you be asking for a $5 trillion debt increase? Why? The answer is because they're fucking lying to you.
Yeah, there's and I mean this as nice as possible, MAGA. Yeah, you just got to think, right? When you're screaming, oh, Elmo is doing Elon, or as I now call him, thanks to Toodle, Space Karen. Why is Space Karen? Why are you defending a man who's saying, I'm cutting waste, fraud, and abuse, which we know from the doge.muskwatch.com, that's not even happening.
Nope.
But they're not balancing the budget. That's the specific, just follow the line of logic out. You keep saying, oh, the debt's increasing, the deficit's increasing, we have to do something about it. They're not doing something about it. They're literally just transferring wealth to the top of the economy. They're stealing what little we have left to give themselves more. And even then, if they take everything we have, we still are going into more debt.
Correct.
We're nowhere near breaking even. We're still going to go trillions into debt.
And remember what happened when we can look at the most recent example of significant drops in the market, 2008, 2009. We know the history of it. We know why it happened for the most part. Banking industry deregulated, the housing industry deregulated, all these predatory loans, no job, no employment loans. We know that from the story, The Big Short and everything else that's written about that. During that time is when you really started to see the wealth gap get wider and wider. And then exponentially it increased during COVID. Why is that? It's because the people with money prey on the people who don't have it. So when the people bet on shorting the market, people bet on American assets, homes, 401k, pensions just dissolving away. So if they currently own, the estimates are the top 1% own roughly between 1 and 3% of all the fucking wealth. All of a sudden they double it. right? So you think we're slaves to the system now? Buckle the fuck up. This is by design. To Felice's point, when Trump says we're all going to get rich, it's the people in his inner circle. It's the billionaire class. Because he
want
thinks
us to
by
be
propping
slaves.
them up.
That's why no single payer healthcare. They want us to be beholden to them, slave laborers to them if we want to go to the doctor. If they drain our savings, we have to work in shitty meat packing plants or wherever they want us to work, right? They don't want us to be thinking. They don't want us having healthcare and not being dependent on them for it. They want to make us a feudalist society. This is techno-feudalism, literally 101. Absolutely. We're almost to 100K. We're about to accomplish something. We have control of so little right now. Keep tapping that screen.
Again, the pre-market, so the futures on the Dow estimated to be down like almost 3%, roughly 1,200 points. S&P 3.3%. NASDAQ futures down almost 4%. So we'll be watching the market when it opens in an hour. It went up a little bit yesterday. And then I don't think people, listen, we're not all economists, but we can look at macro numbers. But when you really get into what this is, it's a money grab. The entire thing is a money grab.
It's a transfer of wealth. Short, exactly. And there's different forms of it. It's short-term transfers of wealth. Yep. Like I've talked about. This is now the fourth and biggest time. Like people were like, the market's crashing or running after us. It's like, yes, of course it is. This is what he's been setting up, right? All of it. And what do you need to make money in times like this? Billionaires, capitalists don't fear recession. If you have capital, that is when the money grabs happen, right? When people with not a lot, right? When mortgages fold, when people lose their homes, all those assets are buy low, sell high, are snapped up by the rich. That's what they're waiting for. This dip in the market, that's what happened. When your 401k got noticeably smaller yesterday, where did that money go? To some capitalist, to one of these, State Street or BlackRock or Vanguard who had the capital to bet and short the market yesterday.
Absolutely. That's exactly what they did.
And that's the short-term transfers of wealth. That's why I refused yesterday to even watch that thing live because I already know what he's doing. It's a money grab. This is the fourth time and the most extreme time that he has done it. He's doing a money grab long-term. We talked about it. Tariffs are a regressive tax.
Absolutely.
So we are now middle class, lower classes. We are now going to pay state taxes, federal taxes, and every single time we have to transact, we are a consumption economy. We have no choice. We are going to pay the taxes of corporations and billionaires for them.
Yeah, Toodle's right. You can't short unless
Which transfers wealth where?
Exactly, to the top. In capitalism, money has to circulate, and it doesn't. It stays to the top. And Toodle's right. You have to have a minimum number of, you got to have some assets to be able to short.
Yeah,
so again, it benefits the people at the top.
That's the thing about capitalism. It's not, they're always like, well, I'm successful, so he's a genius. No, you need one thing in capitalism to succeed. Capital. Right? Exactly. And they were born with it, right? These people were born with the capital to succeed. If you start with capital, as long as you're not a complete buffoon, you can succeed. Steve, that's so nice. Oh my gosh, we made it all the way to 106K. You guys are amazing. Look at us accomplishing goals. Keep tapping that screen. Let's get to 125.
You always say this. You are the ultimate hype girl.
I am. But I also just like accomplishing small goals. I like working together in a group.
Me too. I agree.
I'm a team. I like being on a team.
So here's, this is what, as we were just talking about, we'll start to piece together some of the various sound bites he had yesterday because he didn't know what the fuck he was talking about. But here's an example.
So if you look at that.
He's looking at the
China,
charts.
first row, China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA, including currency manipulation and trade barriers. So,
which, first of all, is complete bullshit. They are attempting, again, like we talk about, just the MO of the Trump administration, 45 and 47, is to use these grandiose presentations, whether it be him on True Social or these ceremonies with certain individuals to try to scare the American electorate, their base, not only, I shouldn't say scare their base, but to fire up their base that we've been getting ripped off. The numbers that they produced, I didn't spend as much time on it as you did, but it's nonsense. This information does not track at all. It's not even close. So he's trying to sell it as, in this case, China's hitting us with 67%. So we're going to be kind, and we're only going to hit them with 34%. That's on top of the 25% that already exists. So he's, again, fucking lying to you.
Well, 67%, I think you can.
One quick thing. And the most important thing, and I'm sorry, I was going to say this earlier because we probably should have started with this at the beginning to know. The legacy media is failing us, right? Absolutely. When you hear, every time they say the words, and I watched headline after headline come out say, Trump imposes reciprocal tariffs. These are not reciprocal tariffs. Absolutely. They are not. This is an attack. That's what Trump wants, and MAGA will just take it face value. Well, that, assuming they know what the word reciprocal means, they may not even know what that word means. But you know, Trump wants you to believe we've been under attack. That's why, exactly like I love that video you're talking about from Mr. Global, who's saying the point is to poison the well against Canada, to convince the American people, the dumb ones anyways, that Canada has done something to us, has taken something from us. So now we need to attack them. That's what Trump was trying to say. These countries have done something to us, and I'm just responding. That's a complete lie. Trump attacked all of these countries, right? Our exports cost a lot of money because of the value of the US dollar. I mean, and we could go into the oil industry and why we have trade deficits, but also just basically because it costs a lot of money to export things, costs a lot of money for labor, costs a lot of money for parts to make things here. The American dollar is the gold standard of currency. All of that makes it very expensive to export things to other countries. That's not the fault of other countries. You know what other countries do? If they want more people to buy their exports, they devalue their own currency.
Exactly.
Scott Bessent actually has written extensive economic essays on devaluing the US dollar, which is really scary.
It is. And I'm glad you mentioned him in particular because he's not a dumb man. He's a pretty smart guy.
No, he's very, very intelligent, but he's not driving this train, Nutlick and Trump are.
And he's got to go out there and sell that, right? And I want to continue playing this, but I want to remind folks of something you can see in right-wing spaces. And I'm glad you said that about the mainstream media, because we know that they don't know how to cover the Trump administration. And when I say that, it's because they allow the same talking points to be used in their headlines. I agree with you. It is not a reciprocity. These are not reciprocal, retaliatory.
Yeah, we really need to get back at those penguins.
There's a tariff on my reciprocating saw. I don't.
Yeah, we really need to retaliate against the penguins. Yeah. We got to get back at those penguins who've been, fleecing us with their exports on Herd Island. These are reciprocal tariffs on an island of penguins who have stolen from us. Make it make sense.
Exactly. So let's go back to the sound because I think it's just amazing to listen to.
And for the most part, see it. Those with good eyes, with bad eyes. We didn't want to it's very windy out here. We didn't want to bring out the big charts because it had no chance of standing. Fortunately, we came armed with a little smaller chart. So it's 67%, so we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. I think, in other words, they charge us, we charge them less. So how can anybody be upset? They will be because we never charge anybody anything, but now we're going to charge. European Union, they're very tough, very, very tough traders. You think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. It's so sad to see. It's so pathetic. 39%, we're going to charge them 20%, so we're charging them essentially half.
He doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. He does not know.
Well, no, and when he does that, though, I mean, and we talked about this the last time you and I did a live together, that the equivalent of the Heritage Foundation, a think tank in Russia, European intelligence got a hold of a bunch of documents. What Trump is doing, the attacks on the European Union, the attacks on Canada, the attacks on China, this is literally a plan from a Russian think tank. So Russia has time to destroy Ukraine while Trump runs cover, right? I mean, he didn't come up with any of this on his own. There's multiple reasons he's doing it. But yeah, when he attacks the European Union, all I think is just Putin sitting there just smiling. You know what I mean? This man works full Comrade Krasnov in full effect.
Absolutely, man. I'm glad you said that because everything ties back to Russia. Follow the money and it's all Russian propaganda. I mean, you were literally saying to the American consumer, right, that from the Trump administration's perspective, we do not give a flying fuck about you, but we are going to come up with some language that makes you feel like you're going to be picked, like you're sitting on the bleachers at the prom waiting for somebody to ask you to dance, and they ain't dancing with you. It ain't going to happen. So here's a little bit more reporting from that just disaster yesterday. I don't even know. Disaster is probably an understatement.
So we're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%.
That brings U.S. tariffs on Chinese imports to 54% on top of the existing 20%. China is calling this unilateral bullying and promises to take countermeasures. And now even small packages Americans order under $800 US, which were once duty-free under the de minimis rule, are getting taxed. That means shopping from Chinese e-commerce sites like Shein and Temu could get a whole lot pricier for Americans. Now, this isn't the only piece of bad news for companies. As Vietnam gets slapped with a 46% tariff and Cambodia 49%, Chinese and international firms, who in recent years shifted production to other Asian countries, such as these two, will also get hit. The widening trade war comes at a time when China is already struggling with an economic downturn. As for American consumers, they'll be hit the hardest, as prices are likely to go up. One analyst told me that we could see American consumption go down.
That right there. So two things. A lot of China. So before Cambodia and Vietnam were
could
included
see
in these
American
tariffs,
consumption go down.
Exactly. A lot of Chinese companies and manufacturing companies move their operations to Vietnam and Cambodia
Absolutely.
to avoid being tariffed. Now they can't do that. So this entire thing. I mean, listen. You don't have to believe us. You can look at the stock market. It's down like 4,000 points.
Right about everything.
I know.
Well, no one listens to you. Well, and this is the other thing.
Every day we talk about it, right?
Yeah. And I haven't, like I have, but I literally haven't slept because I've just been fast. I've been reading some of my favorite economists around the world. These economists in Australia are pissed. And this is what you need to understand. We cannot fuel our economy. This is the largest tax increase, I'm quoting JP Morgan, since the Revenue Act of 1968, but it's not viable. It's not sustainable because you have to understand how consumer behavior works, right? He's now put all these tariffs on products. We're not going to levy the projected revenue, the minimum projected revenue, because people will just stop consuming those products. That's how consumption works. Over time, the more expensive products get, the less people will consume them. This is not even a viable long-term strategy.
No, it's not. I mean, I think I'm glad you said that because the whole point of this exercise, at least in the mind of MAGA, was that the tariffs were going to mean American consumers were not only going to save money, but manufacturing jobs were going to come back to our country. We are not a manufacturing society. We haven't been. We're a service economy. We're an innovative society. We're not going backwards. Why would we want to? That is the point of having global partnerships. So keep in mind, some of the largest investors in China and in developing nations are people in his fucking cabinet. People that are stand to benefit from these economies as they grow. Elon Musk, the Gigafactory for Tesla, it's one of the largest factories in the world. Where is it? It's in China. So
they all have interests in China.
Exactly. So they have interest. Think about this. We talk about this a lot. The whole soft power approach to humanitarian aid. You know, USAID, when you are sending medicine and supplies and water and improving infrastructure and helping solve, health crises, and you wrap things up in an American flag and you deliver it with the American military, that buys you deference in trade policies, access to resources, leverage. If that goes away, China, the Silk Road improvements, they are ready to step on in. And I've said this before, and I want to get your opinion on this. We can certainly criticize China and their labor practices. But are we any better off? I mean, are we any better at the end of the day? Seriously, I mean,
now we
want to introduce child labor laws in Florida.
Don't even get me started on that. I mean,
like,
now
are we any better?
That's the reality is the reason globalism was created, because it's how, again, MAGA could not find your way out of a paper bag to save your life. It's like you're telling on yourselves. It's like, just wear a sign that says I'm stupid, right? Like when you start saying these globalists, you mean you, the globalists, you
exactly.
Conservatives that started globalism. And do you understand why? Why was manufacturing offshored? Labor laws, because slave labor was ended. Well, it has not been ended, as we all know. It's alive and well in prisons, and child labor in different forms. But because when we started raising our standards, right? Like, oh, people are losing hands and fingers in factories and have no rights. And like, maybe people should get bathroom breaks, and maybe there needs to be regulation. The cost of labor in the U.S. went up. So we had to offshore labor because capitalism doesn't care about humans. The point is, I need to produce this product at the lowest cost. We offshored. We got rid of manufacturing so we could have sweatshops and slave labor in other countries that
Correct.
Don't have labor laws. To bring manufacturing back would mean, which, don't get me wrong, I think this is where we're headed. I mean, if we move into authoritarianism, fascism, that's what we've seen in Russia, the move towards no more labor laws. You see, this is what conservatives are doing. They attack labor laws at every turn. The only way to make manufacturing reasonably priced in America is to take our rights as workers away.
Correct.
Period. That's it.
So like that whole lie that they told about no tax on overtime, they wanted to do away with overtime, which would why there be no tax on overtime. You're exactly right. I mean, you look at what Florida's doing, or starting to see it in Ohio and other states wanting to change labor laws. So you mass deport immigrants, hardworking people who want to come in here and make their lives better and their family lives better. You want to mass deport them, and you realize, holy shit, we are now down a massive chunk of the workforce. Well, we know that Americans, typically speaking, aren't going to do it. So let's just change the labor laws and send the kids into the fields or into the mines with their tiny little hands so they can reach into places and lose fingers. No big deal.
The children are yearning for the mines, Steve. Don't worry about it. They don't need recess. They can have recess. They can get a little break in the sunlight every few hours. It'll be fine. The kids are going to be fine in the mines. Maybe they can go to school down there. We don't know. What does Trump say? We're bringing back clean coal?
Clean coal. That's right. Clean coal.
Can't wait for the clean coal mines and the kids to get down in there.
So what you're going to hear in response to this in these right-wing spaces, remember, Felice and I go to right-wing spaces, so you don't have to. You're welcome. Although I don't go as much as I used to because it's not good for my mental health. They're going to say, oh, so you guys support slave labor. And my question is, and as the breakdown that Felice just did, it's what we have here. Capitalism depends on it. Just because we claim to be better, are we? Are we? Minimum wage of $7.25.
We are not better. Yeah, that's the dirtiest secret in America. The biggest lie that Americans, I think, if we really wanted to educate the American public, it would be a requirement before the age of 18, sometime in high school, to spend a year going to school in another country. If you have not lived a year outside the United States, or maybe not even a year, just 6 months, to just really truly get a picture of how delusional Americans are, how American exceptionalism is a complete lie. We are no better than anyone else. We are the problem, walking around like we're the solution.
We discuss this because our society is a consumption society. We are entitled as Americans. We don't like to be inconvenienced. This is why we have companies like DoorDash and Uber Eats. We just don't want to be inconvenienced, and we complain when we are. So now, because of what we've been saying about how capitalism exists and benefits the rich because they hoard their money, it doesn't circulate. It's in the last 50 years, we've got so many examples of it's longer than the last 50, but in particular, it's been highlighted the last 50 years. Without that, there is no access to the money that could benefit the rest of us. So when we talk about things like wanting to be more progressive, and I know you'll agree with this, Felice, the world laughs at us when we say we're progressive. We're progressive from an American politics perspective, but people are like, wait, you guys don't
think
have
the
fucking
most
you don't have fucking healthcare.
the most extreme right-wing fringe, the craziest fascists in Europe have universal health care. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So like
Exactly.
to them, like that's why it's hilarious when Trump says Canada's going to be the 51st state. The most extreme right-wing fringe wants no part of what we consider progressive America.
This is what, on that topic, this is what our friend, the scholar Jesse Waters had to say about things like that. Okay, so this is Jesse talking about diplomacy specifically as it relates to Greenland, Denmark, etc.
You have to burn down a few bridges with Denmark to take Greenland. We're big boys. We dropped A-bombs on Japan, and now they're our top ally in the Pacific. We may have to burn a bridge to build a big, beautiful new one to the next generation. America's not handcuffed by history. Trump knows what we need to do to make this century America's century.
So the analogy that Jesse tried to say is that eventually Japan became our most important ally because we dropped the boom boom on them. And his argument is tough love worked on Japan. So let's do the same thing with Denmark, Canada, Mexico, the EU, etc., 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 which again goes back to capitalism. Denmark, the European Union, all these nations that are now on the list to be targeted from the reciprocal tariffs all have better qualities of life than we do. They all do. They all do.
Read if you haven't heard of the Human Development Index, look it up. Right? Nobody wants to be here in America.
So
America is not great.
A discounted.
No, I mean, and I want to go back to that, right? So you're going to see people criticize what they call globalist policies. It's just because we tend to pay attention. We understand that we live in a global economy. The entire point of having trading partners is to supplement what you can't do in your own country. Again, as a consumption society, our system depends on consumers spending money. So the lessons learned from 2008, 2009 is that there wasn't enough money injected into the economy fast enough. That's part of what they learned from that, which is when you get the American Relief Act and you get the CARES Act and when you get PPP loans. That was by design. And guess what? It worked. It worked, which is one of the reasons the U.S. recovered from COVID faster than any other westernized nation. It wasn't even close. So they look at that, the conservative right, saying government spending, government spending, government spending. I don't think there's anybody here. I know Felice would agree. I won't put words in your mouth, but I know you would agree. Certainly we spend a lot of money wastefully in our government, but just because you don't like it does not mean it's waste. Just because you don't agree with it does not mean it's fraud. Just because programs are propped up to help marginalized communities does not mean it's abuse. We don't survive without money circulating, and we're seeing it every single day. The people that are continuing to be harmed the most are conservative voters. Again, I look at distinction between Republican, Democrat. There's conservatives and there's progressives, because there are conservative Democrats as well that are still holding our country back. If you want to make progressive change, then at some point people have to understand that we are slaves in the machine. And that is the American capitalism, period.
Yeah. And also notice the pattern. Like I said, I always say, I see the world in patterns. And once you see the patterns, you can't unsee them. And notice the very consistent pattern throughout time of conservatives breaking things so they can yell there is a problem, and their solution will always be to what? It's something that involves greed, something that involves privatization.
Absolutely.
Militarization.
Weaponization,
right? I mean, imagine we have this problem. We started getting labor rights because a progressive movement happened in America. And we're like, hey, we're not going to let kids or people die in factories and lose hands every day.
Like a union member for
we
weekends
needed
off.
Slave labor. So then we started destabilizing South America and stealing from them to drive a slave labor class north to the southern border, so then Republicans could say, what are all these people doing here, while exploiting them for capitalism and their labor, and saying, we didn't do this, but, America's not smart enough to recognize absolutely they did do it. And then say we need to solve this problem. Now we're back to mass deportation. Where do we go from mass deportation? Well, if we don't have undocumented slave labor class, bring in the kids. That's that's the new solution. Where does the labor come from now? That's why they want to fill up prisons. These are going to be labor camps where they're sending. El Salvador is a mini United States. I mean, truly, that's what's going on there. CCOT, where they're sending people, that is a slave labor camp that is fueling the El Salvadorian economy.
Correct.
We have slave labor in prisons. It's one of our best slave labor pipelines. That's all they're doing is mirroring what we do in the U.S. We are paying, and just to make sure everyone knows this, what's better? I think here's something we can agree on, MAGA. We should deport people back to their countries, and we shouldn't be paying for them after that. We are paying El Salvador $6 million a year to house people that didn't even commit crimes. It's not like we're dropping them off there. We are now paying $6 million a year to Bukele to deport people and keep them in a prison in perpetuity. Is that why are we spending money on that? Why don't we just deport them?
It's a brilliant question. I think what we're also seeing, and I'm glad you said it the way that you said it, because this whole approach to the for-profit prison system, when you have unemployment as, historically low for years in our country, COVID aside, 4% unemployment, I think there's roughly 8 or 9 million jobs open.
Talk about
currently.
Human trafficking. Who said that? It is human trafficking. It's literally, we're watching a human trafficking pipeline.
So you've got Mike Johnson has come out publicly say, women need to give more, need to squeeze out more babies so we can solve the labor shortage. So not only are women are not just incubators, but apparently your employment offices as well. So you've got to find your labor somewhere. So they're going to try to sell the American consumer or the American public, their voters, that it's okay. Children should be going back to work. Kids, instead of doing their homework and trying to go to college and try to make their lives better, trade school, whatever it might be, instead, not only do they want to change the labor laws, that includes overnight shifts, that includes not having to pay them minimum wage, all these things. So if that doesn't work, then where do you go? Then you go to the prison system. And we already know that people are getting locked up for a variety of reasons. Protesting on college campuses, co-authoring an opinion piece and then being said,
don't have an opinion in college. Let me help you with what happens at university. That's the point, is you're supposed to learn to think critically and formulate opinions. And now people are being disappeared for paying hundreds of again, fueling the U.S. economy, paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to come from another country to get an education, to get a PhD, to learn to think critically and formulate opinions. And now those opinions will get you disappeared. Wait, and can I make one more point before you play the thing? Because just like you were saying with the children, I mean, that is why how do you ensure that the children become a slave labor pipeline? You abolish the Department of Education. People
just go in there. Exactly.
I mean, that is the point. And people don't understand this. Linda McMahon, wacko Linda McMahon, was outside the Department of Education yesterday when the progressives were there and came outside and talked. And she was like, we're giving the right to bring curriculum back to the states. Everything she said at the beginning was a lie. All of the curriculum's already done in the states. All of this stuff is determined by the states. The only thing the Department of Education did was try to offset the Jim Crow segregation nature of how public schools were funded. It was to create equity and equality in the school system. And when you abolish that, you now have people that cannot learn, cannot get their needs met, and are desperate and are more likely to children will enter the workforce at a younger age.
Correct. That's the long game. And we've talked about this many, many times. This has been the Republican, the GOP conservative investment for the last 40 years is exactly what we're seeing. They played the long game. They were in it early on, knowing that they had to reshape the judiciary, that they needed to make sure that they could gerrymander every chance they get, which I want to talk about Wisconsin in just a second, in Florida, which is part of the strategy that they've had from the very beginning. So they're now here. They've been given the gift of Comrade Krasnov behind the White House, someone who's so stupid that they can manipulate very easily. This is what they've been talking about. So for those of you who claim that, you think that, economic freedom and America is the greatest country on earth. No, not even fucking close.
We've slowed down on the tapping. Let's get to 200K. Let's keep working on our tapping goals. You guys are amazing. Thanks for supporting Steve.
So I know, and Felice, and thank you for supporting her as well. So I know that and I went publicly to say, I didn't expect those two races in Florida to end up with Democrats. Florida's a red state. Sure, there was a reduction in the margins.
Red.
Yeah, ruby red. So sure, there was a reduction in the margins between the candidates, but the Democrats outspent Republicans in that state 10-1. And we still couldn't flip those seats. So I say fuck Florida, quite frankly. Due respect. Fuck Florida. That Wisconsin state Senate seat, a 10-point swing when Elon Musk, the Supreme Court seat in Wisconsin, that 10-point win, which is a mandate, which is a landslide. That state is purple. That state now has liberal justices to push back against the bullshit gerrymandering. Now that state can fend off an 1845 abortion law. That's the stuff that we should be focused on. That is and again, the mainstream media not talking about that enough. That is a huge thing, a huge thing. Of course he
admitted it. Elon said, the reason I'm here on Sunday, the reason I'm spending this money is so goes the Wisconsin Supreme Court, so goes the House, so goes the country. And
Absolutely.
If you don't understand, trust me, what Trump did yesterday is demoralizing. But what we did when we held that, what you did in Wisconsin, I could cry. I could fly to Wisconsin and hug every single person that voted in that election, because you literally are a pivotal role in saving our country. I talk about this, if we had the North Carolina Supreme Court, if it was a liberal court right now, we would have the House. Period.
Exactly. I totally agree with you. I totally agree. Let's bring up a couple. We have some people requesting. Let's bring up a couple of folks, and we'll get back into our topic. Everybody, please continue to like and share the live. Consider subscribing. Please support Felice for the amount of work that she does. She's been up all night. I got a text from her this morning. I'm like, wait a minute. It's like I'm just barely getting up. Are you still awake? Hazy, thank you for your patience. What's on your mind this morning?
Oh, no problem. I'm glad to see you both are having a good morning. And Felice, I've been loving watching you join with the different creators on here. Been learning a lot. But so I think, Steve, we had talked last week about the Federal Register and things like that and how that's out there. I'm a bit of a coffee nerd because I work in the food industry for a pretty big coffee company. And when you look at coffee, I think we all realize that some of the countries that are out there are going to be hit so hard with these tariffs. So I just wanted to give people some numbers and kind of break this down a little bit for where we're at. Please. And anybody can double check these numbers. They are on the commodities listings. When you think about the U.S., there's 70% of America to 75% that drinks coffee. When you look at the coffees that are typically drank in the U.S., they're either going to be Arabica or Robusta coffees. If somebody goes to look at this, Arabica is managed on the U.S. market, Robusta is watched on the European market. We are at an all-time...
Easy, just so you know, real quick, I worked in the coffee industry for 10 years, so I'm loving this shit. So let's go.
Perfect.
I've been reading all about the coffee industry all day, so I'm so glad you're here. I followed you too.
So 14 years I have worked with green coffee. At if I say this, you'll probably know where, but it's at one of the largest silos in the world. And one of the largest. Yeah. So, needless to say, so if we look at the time frame that we're in right now, people have been, and use the word complaining because of cost, with coffee going up in cost and people taking constant cost increases. But if we look at where we're at in terms of the market, the costs that are out there are some of the highest costs that have ever hit the coffee industry over the past, I've been in the industry for 14 years and have never seen these high of costs. And one of the things that I think people forget is there is no commercial stream in the US that is large enough to support the volume of coffee that is drank in the US.
The closest is like Hawaii. Hawaii better start exporting.
There's not enough Kona.
I know. There's nowhere close, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
it grows between the tropics. It only grows between the tropics, right?
Kona coffee, I can tell you last I looked at it was $20 plus a pound. Crazy. So if you think about that, and then Puerto Rico does grow some coffee. However, it has protectionist rights where they try to keep most of the coffee in Puerto Rico.
Correct.
So as we think through that and just looking at the tariffs that are proposed, so Robusta, it closed yesterday right around 250, I think it was, 250, 260. If we look at a 46% tariff on Vietnam, you're now looking at $3.50. If you look at Arabica, it closed somewhere between $4 and $5 yesterday. You're looking, when you look at Indonesia, it went to 32%. Nicaragua was 18%, and then the other coffee origins that are out there that we typically purchase from in the U.S. are up 10%. So just looking at the highest, you're now looking at over $5 per pound coming out of that origin, and that would be Indonesia. But Indonesia, while we export or import a lot from Indonesia, it is nowhere near, even though I saw some figures that say it's one of the biggest that we import from. I can tell you right now, the biggest ones are Colombia, Brazil, and Vietnam.
Correct.
So the cost for Vietnam is going to be absolutely astronomical.
Yep.
And then you take that into account. And when you look at these commodities tables, you also then have to look at futures. And so coffee gets kind of weird with that. And I mean, it is for all commodities, but you have to look at the futures and know how you're purchasing and what's your basically like your over under. You're taking a bet on purchasing coffee for the future. So when you think about that, it could be plus, it could be minus. So you look at the number then that's on the market, and you might be adding, say it's 40 cents to that because they look at the cost of shipping and organizing the shipping and the containerizing and what's the cost of a container at that point in time. And then, so say I get something out of an African origin, which Ethiopia is on the list at a 10% rate. If I get something out of Ethiopia, my differential, which is what they call it, you're going to be talking potentially up to $2. So add that.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up. So, and there's so many layers there. One thing that I know, from being in the industry, that I learned from being in the industry, is you do not want to get between someone and their coffee.
No.
That's just not something you want to do. Does not go well. So for folks that don't know, what she's talking about is coffee grows between the tropics, right? So if you look at a map, you can see that's where coffee grows. That's where we get it from. Kona is the only place in the United States, Kona being Hawaiian, it's always been really expensive just because it's expensive to get items to and from Hawaii. So this is, again, Cambodia.
Yeah, islands, very expensive to export.
Yes.
The tropics are, the equator is right around the middle of the world. The tropics are to the north and south, right? It's the
tropic of Cancer.
Latitude to the north and south of the equator.
Yeah,
Exactly.
So it'll only grow there, and it has to have elevation. So
it's already being under threat due to climate, and it grows in mountainous areas, and there's all kinds of factors. Then there's fair trade components, all these factors. So I'm glad you brought it up. So that is a small example of the impact that the price of something that's millions and millions and millions of Americans consume every day, yours truly included. These are little things. Hazy, I really appreciate you bringing that up. These are the small things as we start to experience these price sensitivity and volatility that we're all going to bang into. Thank you for bringing it up today, friend. I really appreciate you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And just to add to the conversation we had last week with them, also talking about if any of these vessels come from China or have the Chinese flag on them, they're also looking at the $1 million increase for bringing them into ports. And just for people's information, if you look at the origins of coffee that they're talking about, Colombia is one of the only ones that has what they have. It's a dual season where they have a spring and fall kind of. Right. They call it a mataka crop. They're the only ones on this list that have two crops that can actually support industry, but it's still not enough if we were just to go with Colombia, because Colombian coffee is Arabica, and so your cost is then higher. So be prepared for that morning cup of coffee. Like it's going to go up. Stock up now, but be prepared.
We're all going to have to switch to breakfast tea.
You, friend.
It's so nice to meet you. Love your brain.
Oh, thank you. Nice meeting you as well. I hope you all have a great day.
I wanted to say this. When you look at the tariff lists and stuff, I've seen a lot of people online being like, why are the tariff rates so cheap for South America? It is not what Trump is saying. It's literally just the trade deficit with the country divided by the imports. So the reason the rates are smaller, the tariff rates are smaller with South America is because there are larger trade partners, right? We are a trading block with them. So they are getting more of our products. So that's why it's smaller, right? And like why Asia is so high. Asia has a lot of protectionist policies against U.S. imports. And quite frankly, they can't effing afford them. It's much cheaper when you're in a trade block to take U.S. imports due to NAFTA and the USMC.
Let's use USMC let's use coffee as an example for just a second, because the argument that we get from the right, again, the lies that are being told, is that we'll just bring domestic manufacturing back to the United States. We'll just make it here. America first. States' rights, brother. Well, that won't work. You can't grow coffee in the United States, with the exception of Hawaii. You just can't. Period. I've been to Colombia. Part of working in the industry is I got to take a trip to a coffee supplier. It's an incredible operation that's done manually, that people are putting their baskets on their back and they're picking the cherries, and by the way, coffee's a cherry. It's not a bean technically. Anyway, that's a different story. I love the industry, but is that true? Yeah, it's not. It's a cherry, and the inside of the cherry. Yeah, the inside of the cherry.
Fascinating.
Is the coffee bean. The volatility of that industry is climate dependent, is water dependent, because they grow on mountainsides.
Oh, I lived in South America. I mean, everyone should go to South America and the tropics in South America and see how things just grow on their own. Like, it's amazing. I mean, the humidity in the air alone, that's why all of our flowers come from there. The cannabis industry, if you're not growing hydroponically indoors, that's why it grows outside. They're doing it in South America and it's being imported here. I mean, yeah, fascinating, absolutely fascinating stuff. Can I just say, Debbie, thank you so much for the $10 on Venmo. You don't know what that means to me. Like, all my work and research is funded by your guys' generosity. So she said, thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate you so much.
We appreciate you. So that's just an example of these little things. We think about it in terms of these large items like cars and lumber and steel and all these kinds of things, and then the consumables like through Shein and Temu, those kinds of things. But things that everyday life that if I didn't have my coffee, I'd be cranky as hell. But that's an example of something that's going to impact all of us, right? And I'm glad that Hazy brought that up, because that's an important element. These are, again, we are a consumable society. And like I said earlier, Americans, we are entitled. We do not want to be inconvenienced. So anything that inconveniences us will have an impact. And I think coffee is a really good example. I found this. I want to read this. I think it's great. So it says, I just found, this is from Octavia Butler. We know how amazingly smart she is. From the parable of the talents. Choose your leaders with wisdom and forethought. To be led by a coward is to be controlled by all that coward fears. To be led by a fool is to be led by the opportunist who could control the fool. To be led by a thief is to offer up your most precious treasures only to have them stolen. To be led by a liar is to ask to be told lies. And to be led by a tyrant is to sell yourself and those you love into slavery.
Will you text me that? I love that.
Yes.
Wait, and say again who wrote
Octavia Butler.
Or Octavia. Oh, yes. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I don't know why I was thinking. I'm sorry, brains.
I'm sending it to you right now.
Octavia.
So
Roman.
Okay. So I'll bring up another guest, then we can get back into our topics here, because there's so much to cover today. Everybody, please keep tapping and sharing. We appreciate you. Why is Felice only at 2.4? Let's get that done. Rice Checks, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind today?
Good to see you guys. So I kind of wanted to expand from what the last caller was saying. I said caller like we're on a radio. I'm the director of product development for one of the larger Amazon sellers, and I don't think people kind of realize really what this is going to do for not just the middle class, but also lower class individuals in this country that are struggling to buy clothes and clothes and shoes for their kids. All those products are produced out of the country. We sell a lot of sporting goods. I sell a lot of family products and stuff that people can do. We manufacture everything in China. We've tried to expand. I've been doing this for over 20 years. The U.S. can't manufacture these things. We can't get raw goods. We can't get we're not turnkey. And this is part of the global economy that in trade that really people don't understand is even American companies that are making a small widget or a small device are in business. Those are American companies that are supporting American lives and American jobs because they can produce an affordable product and sell to the American consumer. This is a bigger problem that I think is going to be, this argument of trade deficit. We are a consumer-based country. We consume more than any other nation on this planet.
Correct.
I think we're the third largest country, if I'm not mistaken. But we are by far the largest consumer, especially of stupid consumer products that we probably don't require to live. But that's where the trade deficit comes from. So these arguments, I think as Democrats, we have to kind of push these things back. When you hear these terms being thrown at us, the trade deficit is such a red herring. There's going to be a trade deficit because of how much we consume here. So if we want to change that, we have to stop consuming. That's kind of where I make my living. So it's hard for me to say that, but we have to. That's rule number one. And that's how you change those things. But honestly, I think we're going down this path. I keep hearing and I keep reading online, people are saying that, they're paying for it. We're paying the price for their tariffs. We're not paying that price there. That's to protect some of their own products because they are a smaller country. They do require those tariffs. Tariffs in the U.S. economy is an antiquated tool that we can use in isolated instances when we're getting cheap steel and cheap aluminum from other countries dumping it into our markets. That's where we can protect those things from. But just a broad brushstroke is absolutely insane. I'm terrified of what's coming next. In my job is probably safe where I'm at. But there's probably a lot of people that are going to be laid off because of these. We're raising our prices. Our tariff cost has always been in our quote sheet, and that factors right directly to our MSRP and what we sell these things for. So I can't say it enough. Your prices are going up. This isn't a temporary problem. These prices are going to go up and stay up. Because once we start lowering prices, then we've got what's called deflation, and that becomes an even bigger problem.
Or exactly, stagflation, or deflation would be worse. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, I appreciate that perspective on things because you're right. I mean, and I said this earlier, we are a nation of consumers. Yeah. That's part of that fuels capitalism. You need to have people spending money. We could make, again, the argument, one of the things that I don't think it's talked about enough by traditional media was when you are student loan debt forgiveness, for example. If you give people access to the money that they would be spending on predatory loans, so they would spend it in the economy, that is a good thing. That got turned into this socialism, brother. It just became this nonsense. We have to spend. And the people who get harmed in a situation like this, I'm not going to say harmed, but when consumers stop spending, profits for companies go down. So I know it's a big risk of ask people to not purchase through Amazon, due respect, friend, or to not make these purchases. You said there's things that we buy that we just don't need. We are a country of glutton capitalists. We don't want to go without.
Well, this is the marketplace, right? I mean, that was the point of globalism, right? There's a few marketplaces. The largest one is now the United States, right? I mean, 1000%. That's what trade triads were. That's how they were created. We steal the resources out from under the feet of indigenous people in third world countries. We move them to places like China where slave labor is legal and we can make the products. And And the marketplace is America. Same reason with why you don't see like the illicit F substance, like Mexico doesn't have that same problem. This is the marketplace. In capitalism, you bring your products, your wares to sell to the marketplace.
Right. And I encourage people, if they really want to make a difference, do some research on who you're buying from. Amazon is very famous for dumping. They're dumping cheap commodity or cheap knockoff products into that marketplace. So look up the companies you're buying from. Go find them. Make sure that they've got a U.S. address and you're buying an American company, and support a U.S. company, even if they are manufacturing in China. This isn't the big boogeyman that we all kind of been led to believe that it is. Just do your research. Just that if I'm manufacturing something in China, that I'm a bad guy or I'm a bad company.
Well, it depends if it's ethically sourced. I think, the United States people aren't necessarily so interested in whether or not things are ethically sourced. But when you live abroad, like for instance in Australia, people very much care, is this ethically sourced? What are you using factories in China that are exploiting laborers? But it's most products that make it to the U.S. and our markets.
I will comment on that a little bit. I'm not seeing that as even prevalent. Even with some of the standard factories, child labor has really been outlawed in China, and they've been pretty harsh about it. So
that's not true. I could cite 1,000 reports. Child labor is alive and well in China. That's a crazy thing to say, and not just child labor, but exploitation of adults as well. And that's the nature of the supply chain. People are being exploited along the supply chain. They just are. Period.
I will push back a little bit on that. I've been doing this for a long time. I've been in China for, again, over 20 years. So I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And the other kind of caveat I will say to some of this stuff, and this goes back to the U.S. manufacturing, is that when it comes to manufacturing, it is a low wage, skilled labor position. And so what I mean by that is it does take skills to manufacture things. Plastic parts has to go through a process which we call tooling or injection mold tooling. That's a skill base to design that equipment. Unfortunately, we can't pay those salaries here in the U.S., so we do have to go to a country that has a lower cost of living.
I said that earlier. But that's the point. It's not a lower cost of living. It's literally where there are not labor laws.
Right.
That's why globalism started, was because we decided to create standards in factories. So we had to offshore factories. That is what globalism was based on. It was offshoring factories when we created labor law standards in ours. That's why manufacturing doesn't happen in the U.S. except for at high costs.
Those regulations did create a cost constraint for that, for sure. That is a big factor. The other factor is the consumer. Board members wanted to make more money. That was a big way to pay their boards more money for these large corporations. And the consumer also didn't want to pay for those.
We're exploiting the American workforce now. You agree with that, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Right. So when you say that we can't, we all know, people are paying attention. We all know that we're not a manufacturing society. That's just not who we haven't been for a very long time, which is the reason why you have global partnerships. I don't like the argument that we can't do something. We've made a conscious choice that it's effective economically for us to not be a nation of manufacturing. Those jobs are never coming back. The right is like to say we lose more manufacturing jobs under Republican administrations and tax policies than we do under Democrats.
Well, we do.
Again, it's about understanding that we have a global economy. You depend on your global partners by design. So at the end of the day, I think what you said, I want to move on to our next guest, is a really good point. We are addicted to consumption. People spend. That's why we have so much credit card debt. It's why we have people are spending their savings. People are spending above their means because as Americans, we feel like we're entitled to have whatever we want. We don't want to be inconvenienced at all. These tariffs will affect every single industry, from housing to automotive to coffee, etc. And when Americans start to feel that pain, they're going to look for somebody to blame. And the Trump administration, the right-wing echo chamber, will blame it on something other than the people who are responsible.
it's going to be our lower income earners for sure that's going to feel it the most, because those percentages are going to be much more a bit higher percentage of their
regressive
income.
tax. Yeah,
regressive tax. Thanks for being here today, friend. Appreciate you very much.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
See you later.
By the way, nobody, everyone, ethically sourced is impossible. So I just want to say, I just said that. Just to be on board with him. It is almost delusional how Americans are where did this come from? You can't spend all of your time, people are being exploited along the supply chain. I am not suggesting stop buying things or stop surviving in capitalism to a degree. You know what I mean? There's nuance to everything. And we are all on a certain level trying to survive, trying to transact in a corrupt marketplace. So,
Yeah, so let's see. I'm trying to
take everything with a grain of salt. It's not anyone's fault for trying to survive in capital. I mean, to a degree, you know what I'm saying.
I know exactly what you're saying.
But what about Biden? What about Hillary's emails, you guys? Mike Waltz is doing war plans on Gmail, but Hillary's emails.
I wanted to talk about that. Let's shift gears a little bit. See if I can get, so the market is about to open. The estimates.
It is Biden's fault, as we all know.
It's Hunter's fault. It's Hunter's junk's fault, Felice. We know that.
It's because of the laptop.
Yeah, well, and Trump just recently pardoned or commuted the sentences of former Biden associates. That doesn't get talked about enough, but that's a different conversation. So it looks, the projected opening would be the Dow would be down 1,200 points upon opening, which is 3%.
Justin, thank you for the $10 on Cash App for a couple of cups of coffee today or one tomorrow. Oh, I know it's going to be one tomorrow. That's so funny. $10 for coffee. And Ashley, thank you so much for the $10. Your hard work is much appreciated. Oh, Ashley, love you. Thank you so much. You're amazing.
So now that the market is open, officially open, down 1,200 points. 1,200 points, or 2.84% at open. And that is, again, what about Biden? That's Biden's fault. We know that the market is down 111 points for the week, down 1,660 points for the month. It's actually going to be higher than that. It's down almost 4,000 points since Inauguration Day. But what about Biden? What Felice was just talking about, I'm not sure if you guys know this story, but Mike Walls, who tends to just invite people to random events like Signal chats.
Steve, they were sucked in. They were sucked in, Steve. Stop lying. Stop lying, Steve. Everybody has had people's phone numbers sucked into their phone. I don't know why you're lying, Steve.
Greg writes this great post in the Discord, Felice. He says, Hillary's private server was way more secure than Signal because we still haven't seen her emails.
She poured bleach all over him, as MAGA still thinks. Someone tell MAGA bleach, but she did not actually pour bleach on a server. Any day now, they're going to figure that out.
Yeah, so Mike Walls' use of Signal and Gmail revised concerns about White House communication. So, in case you haven't been following the story, he was using Gmail for interdepartmental communications.
National Security Council communications is using his personal Gmail account on his personal phone.
I'm Mike. I'm cool at Gmail.
But Hillary's emails, you guys. And by the way, yeah. And the other thing that people, I think I heard it said once, but I don't think people are saying, do you guys understand that Signal chat, these Gmails, the National Security Council? Steve Witkoff is literally Putin's lapdog, is hanging out in Russia off of Gmail and Signal.
Yeah.
Hanging out in the Kremlin. Sending emails about our war plans. You cannot write this stuff.
Obi just said he has an AOL account. He probably has a Hotmail account, right? That's probably what it is. Yeah, he's Mike Waltz. I'm super secure at Hotmail.com.
Top secret spy stuff at Gmail.
Yeah, exactly.
So funny. Fairy Dust said that.
You know what the best part of that whole story for me is that they named the chat group Houthi war plans was the name of the, like you would say, Becky's 40th, which you'd have on your group chat for all the people involved. So just in case you guys didn't know, we'll go back to the story. New revelations are complicating the White House effort to close the book on the firestorm that erupted when senior administration officials were caught using the Signal messaging app to share plans about a military strike in Yemen. Congressional Democrats returned to the issue Wednesday amid reports that National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, who was already under intense scrutiny for adding a journalist to the Yemen chat, had repeatedly discussed sensitive issues on apps outside the government's control. On Tuesday, the Washington Post reported that Waltz and one senior unnamed aide conducted some government business over personal Gmail accounts, including exchanging messages about schedules and work documents, information that can be exploited by foreign intelligence services. Less than 24 hours later, Politico reported that Waltz's team set up at least 20 Signal group chats to coordinate official work on issues including Ukraine, China, and Gaza, and repeatedly discussed sensitive information. Congressional Democrats are fuming at the news and are renewing their push for accountability by the Trump administration and a change to government communications policies. Lawmakers and experts alike have raised concerns that use of Signal and Gmail for official business may violate federal records keeping laws. You think? But her emails.
The thing you sent me, I was playing in my live yesterday. Pete Hegseth's in making war plans in Europe with his wife in the meetings. Like, and people are like, what the f- is she doing in here?
Yeah, we should talk about that a little bit. So
She has no security clearance, unvetted. Not that Pete Hegseth should have a security clearance. We used to think we were in an idiocracy. We are being led by buffoons, literal buffoons. So
here's
you
the
guys.
audio
We
on
made
that.
it to 200K. I just want to say, amazing job. Thank you for tapping. Thank you for supporting Steve. Let's keep tapping. Let's get to 250K. We can do it.
All right, this is the sound that I sent Felice.
More trouble for embattled Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. He finds himself under fire again today for bringing his wife to high-level meetings. Jennifer Hegseth can be seen in this video following her husband into a meeting in Brussels with our allies to strategize over Ukraine. She takes a seat directly behind her husband. Jennifer Hegseth's presence caused surprise, but the meeting went on without objections. The former Fox News producer was at her husband's side during his confirmation hearings last December, but she does not have an official position in the Trump administration. Mr. Secretary, does your wife attend meetings with sensitive info? When asked about the controversy during his trip to Japan, Hegseth smiled, but did not comment. More trouble.
Okay, so let's talk about that just briefly, shall we? Pete Hegseth is already under fire. We already know the situation. We don't need to revisit it. Everybody knows. We know he's got a history with alcohol. We know that he's not been in a position where he's necessarily made very sound judgment. His wife is not a government employee. She does not have any right to be in any of those meetings whatsoever. Where is
She's the DD, so Emerald Day, someone has to drive him home. Yeah, he can't. That's right. I didn't think about that. That makes sense. He does need a designated driver.
Where is the outrage? Where is the outrage? Why is it that I know, because they're all in a fucking cult.
Listen, MAGA, for once in your life, be logically consistent. The same standard you hold. Let me help you with what logical consistency is too. The same standards you held Biden to, which were unattainable and delusional and based outside of reality. If you wanted to not be an uneducated hypocrite, you would be logically consistent and hold Donald Trump to those same standards, but you do not. And that's why you look like fools. There is no logical consistency. Remember Benghazi and the 800,000 hearings? Well, 4 people disappeared in Lithuania from our military, and Trump didn't even know. They asked him in a press conference, those 4 people unalived in Benghazi, we still are having hearings about it.
Exactly. I'm really glad you said that. All we ever asked is be consistent. That's it. Just be consistent. We spent years listening to Hillary's emails. We spent years reviewing all the information as it relates to Benghazi. She sits for 11 hours for testimony. Just be consistent because you look like, oh, I don't know, like you're in a fucking cult. Why do you not, if you care so much about America, if you care so much about our veterans and our active duty military service men and women, if you care about any of that, then you should be so angry that the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of National Security are just sharing information like they're invitations to the cocktail party.
And be angry they're insulting your intelligence. Be angry that they don't think you're smart enough to figure this out, to hold them accountable, that they can do anything they want, get away with anything they want.
Where are you? This is why I say American conservatives have no spine. What would be so difficult about just saying, going into a right-wing space, whether it be on TikTok or Rumble or wherever the fuck you go, and say, guys, this is really bad. This is really bad. The Secretary of Defense had his wife there. We were critical of Hunter Biden, even though there's no evidence of Hunter Biden doing any crimes. We were screaming and yelling about that every single day. Meanwhile, why was she there? Just ask that simple question. Just ask the question. Why was she there? And then demand answers.
Demand an investigation. I mean, They're just like, matters closed. We're not doing anything. I mean, It's fascinating to watch MAGA fold like lawn chairs. But you're right. Without a spine, it's a lot easier to just fold up so quickly.
Exactly. I mean, the Trump spine removal company is in full swing. They're going to be very, very busy. And we often talk about this, and I know Felice does a great job of talking about this, because there's a distraction behind everything, right? We know he'll say, he being the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing fraudster convicted felon, will stand in front at the bully pulpit behind the Resolute desk or wherever he might be, and he will say something to get the attention, like, the golden watch. He'll, look, follow me, do whatever I tell you, whether it be through the way in which he says things on True Social with all caps, doubling down on certain phrases. There's always something else happening. So there's now reporting from the New York Times about Trump making these statements that he's going to run for a third term. Right? So constitutionally, it's not allowed. 22nd Amendment. 12th Amendment, because he's used arguments about becoming the vice president, and then J.D. Vance would eventually hand over the keys to the car, which, of course, he wouldn't do. But you can't be vice president if you're ineligible to be the president. So there's no constitutional protection for what he's stating. So what's the reason that he's saying it? So according to the New York Times, again, this is reporting, Trump cannot run for a third term as president, barring changes to the Constitution, but that has not stopped him from openly flirting with the idea. He's floated it publicly and privately. And on Sunday, during interview with Krista Welker, he said, I'm not joking about it, and that there are methods to circumvent the 2-term limit set out by the 22nd Amendment. Mr. Trump has not specified those methods, and there are no apparent signs that he's actually laying groundwork for a third term. But his musings, whether based in reality or not, serve a distinct political purpose. They redirect attention from other controversies, such as leaked signal message chains in which his top advisors inadvertently included a journalist, and they freeze the field of potential successors who may steal the spotlight from a lame duck, a status dreaded by American presidents who see their relevance diminish steadily over time. It reads, this quote, it reads like somebody who doesn't want to be treated like a lame duck and is throwing it out there right now, said Derek Muller, a law professor at the University of Notre Dame and a scholar in election law. Quote, it's really hard to be a lame duck president or to be treated that way, and people are talking to you like your term's already over. In January, Representative Andy Ogles of Tennessee, a Republican, proposed a long-shot amendment to the Constitution to make Mr. Trump eligible for a third term. But on Capitol Hill on Monday, top Republicans rejected the idea of changing the Constitution and suggested the president was joking. Senator John Thune of South Dakota, majority leader, said Mr. Trump was, quote, probably having some fun with it. And Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana, the House majority leader, said the comments were aimed to, quote, get people talking. White House officials also suggested the same, noting Mr. Trump did not bring up the topic unprompted, but only responded to questions asked by reporters. Look, you guys continue to ask the president this question about a third term, and then he answers honestly and candidly with a smile, and then everybody here melts down about this answer, said KKK Caroline, the White House press secretary. She added, it's not really something we're thinking about. He has 4 years. There's a lot of work to do. We've done a lot, nearly for 100 days, and the American people love what this president is doing. Again, saying it out loud. right? He's a lame duck, and he doesn't want any other well-known or unknown potential Republican replacements, whether it be J.D. Vance or somebody else, stealing his thunder because he's a malignant fucking narcissist man-child.
When people ask if he's going to pass the baton to, I mean, you could see his jaw tense. You know what I mean? It is sickening to him that people, like, you're exactly right. The fact he's a lame duck president is driving him absolutely mad.
And he can't handle having somebody else getting attention other than him. How pitiful is that? That is just, it tracks.
Why he loves that Elon Musk like invalidates JD Vance. Look what he did to Pence, you know, like if being his vice president is so delusional, like you know what, he makes it a point to invalidate, disempower that person. It's almost like a kiss of death. That's why I was so surprised JD Vance wanted to do it. I don't think there's a worse position to be in. You're threatening a narcissist whose pathology is they believe they're God, and you're threatening that line of logic. That's not a good position to be in.
No, that's an understatement. Malin, how are you today? What's on your mind?
I'm great.
Love your comments in the chat. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Nice to meet you too. I just wanted to state real quickly, if I may, I'm running for Congress in 2026. If, you know, we're allowed. But yeah,
where are you running? Who are you running to replace?
Nicholas Langworthy, New York District 23.
Okay.
Where's is that, just to familiarize? Because I'm, you know, like what part of New York?
So it's like Southtown, Buffalo, and Allegheny, Erie, Alden.
Awesome.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Beautiful.
I think it's amazing, by the way, you're running for Congress. Like, that we need more people to do it.
Agreed.
There's actually a group chat, like maybe not so secret, not Signal secret. But
have you sucked into it?
Are you sharing classified information in that group chat?
I absolutely always am. No, there's a bunch of us, actually. There's, I think, 28 so far that are running for some form of Congress or a state assembly. So that's amazing. They're all great people. We just had a couple of them on this, the Lotus League, I believe.
Oh yeah, the Lotus League. Sure, I've heard that.
Yep.
The time is now too. I mean, Trump, we have to do the work, and I think we are doing the work, but Trump is also helping us do the work, right? Like, absolutely. We are going to see the pendulum swing. If ever you thought about running for anything, not just Congress, but a local position, whatever, like these elections coming up, prime time to get elected, right? People are going to be looking to get rid of these wackos.
And in many cases, Republicans win seats because they often run unopposed. You know, you get people like Boebert, and I've got some sound I'm going to play on Boebert in just a bit too. So,
please
did you want to make a pitch? How can people support you? Is your information in your bio?
Yeah, all my information's in my bio. I don't think I have my link tree attached, but I do have my Act Blue, and I do need campaign donations.
Sure.
I'm falling short of my goal, which sucks. But
would you consider yourself a progressive?
Yeah, far more than progressive. Like as far left as you could go without being, you know, a terrible human being. Yeah, that's
you're advocating.
A man after my own heart.
I'm with you. So you're advocating for universal health care, changes to gun policy, taxing the rich.
Absolutely. Now that's in public here. However, in my district, it's ruby red. So that's a crimson tide all over. It's an R+15. So technically, I can't state that. However, that's exactly how I feel.
What do you mean technically you can't state it?
You absolutely can. Healthcare is a human right? You can be a fascist and have
Pew reform. That I can't even bring up when I'm talking to constituents because they lose their freaking minds.
So the thing is, though, here's the thing, is that the overwhelming majority of Americans believe in universal background checks, red flag laws.
It's an 85-15 issue. It's one of the,
So I'm being told by my campaign manager that I can't, they like don't even speak about Pew reform.
So if you're asked, how would you answer though? So if somebody asks you, what would your answer be?
I believe that there should be a change. I believe that there should be a change, and because
common sense, common sense pew pew reform, people believe in. I think it's fair to say that.
Yeah. So I mean,
I usually just quote the legislation that was put in place by the first administration of Donald J. Dump. But yeah, like the bump stock ban and all that stuff.
So let's game this out a second, okay? So you're at a town hall. You invite people over for coffee and bagels, and one of the bright red MAGA wearing constituents is in the crowd and says, "Malin, can you tell me, do you support universal background checks and red flag laws?" What's your answer going to be? Okay, so then why can't you talk about it?
I don't know. That's all right. So maybe I should have a conversation with the campaign manager.
You should. We want
You got to know what you stand for. Do you know what I'm saying? These are your beliefs, your platform. You're the one that has to look yourself in the mirror. And like, if you don't believe it, no one else will, you know, like when you speak with conviction, believe something, stand for things. I think at the end of the day, that's what people want is a spine.
Yeah. That is true. And I'm running mainly like on Department of Education reform as well, and educating the adult population, or re-educating, I guess.
That's fair.
I love that, former teacher.
Great. Yeah, I think that's great. But I mean, again, we're just challenging you only because,
yeah, no, thank you. I need this.
I mean, Felice and I talk about this all the time. We're connected to a pack. You know, we're both sick and tired of. Due respect, I don't want people to think about this just in terms of getting elected. What is it that you stand for? You stand with 85% of people who are surveyed on these things. Use that. The overwhelming majority of Americans support responsible universal background checks, red flag laws, access to mental health, these kinds of things. Those are popular issues with the American electorate. Don't let a few people who are blinded by their whatever it might be influence your entire campaign. You can provide context, saying, universal health care, because they're going to push back on that too. Oftentimes the same people who push back against any responsible gun legislation are also going to push back on universal health care. If you stand for that, then stand for it.
No, universal health care shouldn't be something that we have to fight for. It should be an unalienable right.
Totally agree.
It is absolutely, at this point in age, like how many countries have universal health care? And then we talk about freedom. Yeah.
Women's rights, those kinds of things. Again, some of the same people who are going to push back on responsible gun legislation don't want Felice to have rights to her body.
Right. Women's and civil rights absolutely need to be codified. There needs to be a constitutional convention for the codification of civil rights and women's rights, especially. Roe v. Wade should be overturned again, I guess. I don't know, rehashed.
And I understand if you're in a red district, you just have to think about how you position it, right? And to me, it's just this. You don't have to get on down there and be like, I'm a feminist. But the point is just this. Hey, every human being has unalienable rights, and we need to codify those, right? Yeah. We need to protect children. How can children learn if they live in constant fear, if they're being psychologically damaged by, is today the day I go to school and and someone pews the school up, right? Children should be able to learn. They have the right to an education, to upward mobility, and to not be psychologically damaged in the process, right? The only people that matter in our society are children. So I think if you're looking for a way to position the 2A thing, and Navy vet in the chat, touched on this, I saw, so I don't want to just piggyback off it, but that is how I see it as well. I mean, we need to protect the most vulnerable, most precious resource, the most valuable resource we have, our future in America, which is our children.
Right.
Malin, would you mind? I want to bring up someone that's running for Congress as well, also a progressive, also in a bright red area. So you guys probably have a lot of the similar kind of challenges you're going to get. You mind if I bring her up real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Victoria's been on our show before, and some of the same challenges, and we're just talking about we want our elected officials. We want our elected officials to be authentic. That's all we're saying. So, Victoria, you heard our friend Malin again. First of all, Malin, this is not in any way being critical of you. I encourage everybody to get involved, and I'm really honored that you want to come up and talk about that. I'm grateful for that. But we should all want our elected officials to be authentic. So
if I can't
that's
take
all I'm
any
trying to
sort of pushback, I shouldn't be running for House or any seat.
Exactly. Thank you for saying that. So, Victoria, you heard Malin, and I know you're in a similar challenge, right? You're surrounded by 2A enthusiasts. Again, due respect as a firearm owner. That's not the issue. We're just trying to talk about messaging. So, any thoughts on the conversation we're having?
Malin, I DM'd you back. I realized as soon as I saw your name, I was like, crap, that's who I was supposed to message back. So I messaged you back, and I followed you because I'm so excited that you're running, and I totally get it, running in a red district. I don't know if you know a little bit about mine, but I am an owner, and I ran on a common sense legislation. So the numbers don't lie. I was able to get a 37% margin with no name recognition. And I ran a completely progressive campaign in a district that my campaign manager also tried to get me to lean away from being so progressive and so openly progressive.
Right. It's
so I feel it's a struggle. But don't be afraid to be yourself. Because realistically you decided to be in that room, so be in that room. Like the biggest thing that I had to realize is, no, I'm educated. I can do this. And having that confidence to do the thing, and also being willing to push back. I mean, I got a lot of pushback at the beginning of my campaign about being progressive. And I would challenge you to speak to dining room table topics, because that's what I did in my district. And it really did resonate with people. I'm really excited you're doing this, because there's a huge group of us that are running for office. There's a lot of us that are excited, and I just happen to have a little bit of a head start, but this is great for you all as well, because it gives you more time to get that name recognition, so that you can do the thing. Hold on one second.
Yeah, and people I come from an advertising, well, Steve and I should say, come from advertising marketing backgrounds. People in this country crave authenticity. I am so tired of people being fake and pretending. I don't care what you believe. Just be honest with me about it. Show me who you are. People crave that. So don't be like, well, I can't mention this. I'm scared to say who I am. The more you show people who you are, the more you say, this is who I am unapologetically, the more you will be embraced in society.
Yeah, I'm a candidate who says, fuck. And a lot of my followers love that.
I just think the bigger
riding the fence is over.
Yeah. I mean, maybe just have that heart to heart with your campaign manager. Just, you are, if your position is that you believe in reasonable and responsible, like the majority of the left believes in. I don't believe in the eradication, but if somebody said to me, let's do away with all access to ARs in our society, I'd be like, okay, fine, no problem. But that's not the position that the left takes. And even, are you a firearm owner yourself?
Not anymore.
Okay, well, you can have your rally at a gun. You could have your rally at a gun range. I mean, there's ways in which you can do this that I think are attractive, and I think to Felice's point, just remind people that the number one cause of death for people under the age of 18 are firearms death, and you can have that conversation. Yeah, exactly, and you can have that conversation with people, right?
Yeah, and they've always talk about protecting the kids, and that conservative lie. That's very frustrating to hear. I watched Jon Stewart rip this guy to shreds, and I absolutely loved every moment of it, because he pushed back.
We all know that interview. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
See, I'm just getting back.
From Kansas or Oklahoma or one of the other. Yeah.
Of course, it's Oklahoma.
I think it was Oklahoma.
But thank you, Malin, for what you're doing. We really appreciate it. Anybody who's running for office, for those of you who have not yet followed Malin, please do so. Support him. Go to the link tree or go to your bio. Act Blue information is there. And then please come back over the course of this election season so we can have these conversations again. We've done lives in the past with Victoria, with Jess, people who are running for office. Give everybody an opportunity to talk about what it is that you're doing and how you're going to make a difference. So,
and we're going to look, Fax and I are, well, I shouldn't give away our secret, but we're working on a series of virtual town halls leading up to the midterms. And so, I think one of the great features of that could and should be local candidates running for Congress, especially in red districts, right? And if one of the most powerful things I've been seeing, I can't get enough of town halls, get a cardboard cutout of your opponent or whoever's in that seat now, carried around with you and be like, where is this guy? I'm here,
Look,
love
I'm
it.
doing that. I'm gonna host a debate with mine.
Maylin, thanks for jumping in today.
They just don't answer back.
Maylin. Thanks a lot for being here. Appreciate it. No, I think that's great. I agree. And while you're both here, I wanted to take an opportunity, since we're talking about just this, the no spine within, not only just no spine within their voters.
Hold on, before you say it, guys, we have to keep tapping for Steve. We've slowed down a bit, but I have all the faith in the world. We're going to get to 250K. Sorry, Steve. Go ahead.
That's okay. This I found this the other day, and Felice, if you don't follow this person, I'll send it to you. Liz Plank on Substack. I see her stuff every now and then. I just really like the way she frames things. So the title of this little pitch that she did is "The Trump Administration is DEI for Incompetent Men. The Trump presidency isn't a horror movie. It's a jackass sequel. The Trump White House isn't some sinister cabal of geniuses. It's a jobs program for the profoundly unqualified. A 4-year experiment in what happens when you hand the keys of government to men who peaked in high school. And while it absolutely hurts women, it also traps good men in a world where they are forced to answer to the worst ones. The MAGA movement isn't a rebellion against elitism. It's a tantrum against merit, a last-ditch effort by underqualified men to hold on to power by discrediting any system that might measure their actual abilities. They didn't kill DEI because it was unfair. They killed it because it worked. Inclusion meant they could be replaced by someone, God forbid, a woman or a person of color, or at the very least, someone who doesn't leave their Venmo public like our brilliant national security advisor just did. And here's the thing. Smart, competent men aren't afraid of DEI. They don't fear fair competition. They welcome it because they know they can rise on merit. They don't need to rig the system, erase the resume, or disqualify the playing field to win. Only insecure men demand a world where everyone else is held back so they can stay ahead. So while I know this week's news feels more dystopian than ever, it's also your permission slip to unclench. The point isn't that they're good at authoritarianism. It's that they're bad at everything else. They will fail at fascism like they fail at everything else they've ever done.
It says, oh my gosh, is this my spirit animal? Definitely send me her Substack. Like, how many times have I said that? Like the situation where mediocre white men failing up is insecure, mediocre white men continuing to fail up is the current condition. Yeah,
but it's exactly, I mean, it's kind of what we're seeing, right? Not only with this stupid, just
Liz Plank, did you say? People are asking in the chat.
Yes. Liz Plank on Substack. That's the only place I've ever found her, and I've seen some of her stuff before. And she just tells me what it is.
I love,
and I just love it. Her name is Liz Plank, Plank. It's what we see from the twice impeached, 4-time indicted, sexually abusing frauds or convicted felon, standing in front of the American public because he has no clue how to navigate anything unless people tell him to. He is a failure. He is mediocre at best. And he's allowed other mediocre men to feel special, like we said before, right? They're waiting on the bleachers at the prom, waiting to be picked. And they ain't going to be picked.
Temporary disaffected millionaire, mediocre white men who are just like, it's almost my turn.
Yeah, I agree.
Literally any minute now, it's going to be my turn. Liz, thank you so much for the $10. I appreciate you. I mean, Liz, what am I saying? Did I say Liz? Lisa. If I didn't say Liz, I was thinking Liz Plank. Lisa, thank you so much for the $10.
You're forgiven.
Look how fast we got to 250K. You guys were amazing. Keep tapping. Let's get to 300K. Look what we can do.
Victoria,
you guys have great fingers, which is a weird thing to say.
I'm blushing. Victoria, anything that you would like to add to our conversation this morning, friend?
I mean, what she's saying is 100% true. Like, we all worked in companies where someone who is unqualified, should not be in a position of power, is promoted or put in a position where they just, throw their toys around and then blame everyone else. And this is exactly what we're seeing in the administration. It's no different than that. I just never thought that I would have a Timu Michael Scott running the country. who's actually in fact horrible. Because at least Michael Scott was redeemable.
Michael Scott had empathy, so it's different.
Good point.
Yeah, it is different. And, this is, we're in this situation where it's like every time I turn around, I'm like, I'm not surprised by what they're doing. It's not surprising to me. It's just disappointing that so many people thought it wouldn't be just this.
I just want to check the market real quick. I know it opened down nearly 1,300 points.
It's running. It's running. The S&P is plunging, right? It was up. It was up. It plunges over 3%. The market is running.
It's running. Yeah, it's down 1,400 points currently. For the S&P to run 500 points. The commodities are crashing. And remember, there are people that are watching it, betting against it, hedging, and they are going
just
to
understand a huge transfer of wealth is happening as your retirement, as your 401k depletes. Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock, they've taken huge positions, betted on this short. Russia, all of this money is being transferred to the top of the economy right now.
Yeah,
but it's brown people that we should be fearing.
You guys, but immigrants have your money, so just make sure to remain suspicious of brown people, because that's where the money is. As we could all very clearly see, the immigrants plan this, and they have your money.
And it's Mima and Peepaw who are living on their Social Security checks, who can't afford to pay for their pharmaceuticals because they were just raised. It's them. They're the threat. They're the ones that are coming after you. Victoria, thank you for jumping in today, friend. I appreciate you. I'll talk to you later. See you later. Bye. All right. Toodle had requested. I think he's still in the box. Toodle's wisdom.
Toodle's got an amazing brain.
Yes. Good morning, Toodle. Good morning to you. And
Top of the morning to you, sir.
Dobre utro.
Sure.
I'm practicing my Russian.
Exactly. It will soon be our national language, so we all must brush up.
Dobre utro. Dobre utro.
What is on your mind today, sir?
Well, you mentioned the Signal chat earlier, and about now that they have the lawsuit against the Signal case, which is going to the court. Do you know who got that? You know who got that case? Who was assigned to?
Yeah,
Boasberg.
Exactly, it's the same.
Oh, here, love it, love it.
So now Boasberg, he's got for people in the chat and that don't know Boasberg, of course, he has the
man that the El Salvador planes,
the rendition case. So he's got to both argue.
The guy that Trump's terrorizing, that Elon Musk doxed on to his 215 million followers, that they had a hearing on Monday which was completely performative, that someone was fundraising off of. Even Republicans admitted that. Like, they had a hearing to impeach him in the House.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that was.
I still have those clips. Maybe we'll get to them today on the People Receipts.
Kabuki Theater 101 there, yeah, for sure. But so they always got to argue. Like, the one case, they're arguing we have state secrets. It's classified. We can't tell you who was on these flights. And in the other case, he has to say these chats were unclassified. It's like,
so which one is it?
Yeah, they've been told to save every bit of correspondence, things that we haven't even seen potentially. So again, incompetent men running the show.
Exactly. Shocker. Hopefully he seems like a very competent man. So I'm glad he's got both these cases. It's like fate just says, okay, you have to have this. But I also wanted to bring up, and of course, we haven't delved into it too much, about Wisconsin and the Supreme Court case, and remember what Elon was saying about the future of humanity depends on this race.
Oh, I remember.
And of course, that seems hyperbolic, but him and Thiel and Curtis Yarvin and all that whole bunch, they really believe that we have to destroy the world now to save the future, like generations from now. Like, we're not going to have the Star Trek utopia going to Mars and, flying cars unless we act today with extreme force. I'm a big Star Trek nerd and all that, but we can progressively get there. We don't have to destroy the country.
Agreed. There's reporting from, I know, because we all sit with bated breath waiting for Alex Jones to say things. He has gone out just recently. I'm trying to find the sound, but if not, I can just tell you what the story is. So on X, he was interviewing Roger Stone, and Alex Jones says, exclusive, there is overwhelming evidence that the Wisconsin Supreme Court race was stolen, says Roger Stone, even though Brad Schimmel, who was the Republican or the conservative judge, conceded. Yes, that is true. There is, according to Roger Stone, because again, I mean,
of course they don't win, so we got it. We got it. We know.
In his concession speech, there, you could hear like people in the audience were saying they cheated.
Yep, exactly. So there's overwhelming evidence that the Wisconsin Supreme Court race was stolen, said Roger Stone. Quote, it's a matter of simple math. The numbers just don't add up.
It's a referendum.
Woo! Good job, Roger.
And when Charlie Kirk wrote this crazy post right after the race was called, right underneath first post is Carrie Lake being like, we got election integrity. This is why we have to protect our elections. Do you guys know? And I don't know. I mean, so much is going on. I don't even think we've talked about it, but one of the more alarming things that's going on this week and last week is that the Democratic National Party, the DNC, is now directly suing to stop Trump from trying to get access and give access to Elon Musk, the voter rolls. They want to access the voter rolls from every state.
Correct.
Take them and give them to Elon Musk. And now the DNC, it might do nothing to even try to sue, but is trying to now stop them. Imagine that's what they ultimately want. This is what they are going to do. They are trying to get a hold of the voter rolls. If it wasn't for what happened with Anna Paulina Luna and them, and Mike Johnson throwing a fit and taking his toys and his go home, what they were going to vote on this week is the SAVE Act, which is a complete BS piece of legislation, right? We have had since 2002 less than 100 cases of non-citizens even trying to register or trying to vote in any election. There have been billions of ballots cast. I think there's almost 700 million just in presidential elections before this last presidential election. And there's been less than 100 cases of voter fraud. The other thing it affects, the SAVE Act, they always say to get people to buy it, they're like, this is about non-citizens voting, which is not happening, right? The other thing is it affects women. If you are married and have changed your name and it doesn't match your birth certificate, you're not going to, and you don't have a passport, you won't be able to vote. This is just extreme voter suppression. Their goal is to make it so we can never win another election.
And Trump CEO last week was he's trying to do it on the opposite end. I think it's like the SAVE Act plus worse.
Yeah, so what Felice is talking about is Anna Paulina Luna. First of all, the bizarro world that we live in, that we're actually kind of saying, wow, she did something to support women. So her big push was one of the rules that the House adopted was you have to vote in person. You can't vote by proxy. Now, sadly, we have this little thing called the congressional record, so we know that Mike Johnson has voted via proxy multiple times.
39 times or 37, something around there.
Exactly. And Byron Donalds, who has been very critical of the proxy vote, had someone vote for him so he could make an appearance on Bill Maher's show last year. So again, them telling you something and complaining about it means that they've done it. So projection is the entire point. So that's why so basically what this vote was is it stopped all legislation on the floor because they have to change the rule. And I think it's great that there's courage. Again, by and large, conservatives have no spine in America, but I think that is that's standing up for young parents.
And give a little more context. All they're saying is when women, not just women, but men, just new parents, you have 3 months It's not forever. It's not even 6 months. It probably should be longer. For 3 months, when you have a tiny little infant that can't move through an airport safely because of germs and all these things, you can vote from home. Yeah. That's it. But the point is, the truth is, these are Christian people are like, Mike Johnson, you say you're pro-family. Why would you do this? You know, exactly. Anna Paulina Luna has one of the most conservative voting records in the conservative caucus. Hardcore she left the Freedom Caucus over this because they wouldn't support her. And it's funny because she's like, right neighborhood, wrong address. She almost gets it. It's like, Anna, they don't want you to vote, not in an election. They don't want you in Congress. They want you at home having babies. They don't want to empower new mothers to be doing anything but having babies, right? I mean, that's the point. They're trying to stop women from voting in general.
Exactly. I mean, I think somebody just made this comment in the chat that ultimately she came around because it affected her. I don't give a shit. If that's what it took for her to stand up for sure, then okay.
That's always what it takes for them. They have to be until they're personally affected and they feel the pain. They cannot put themselves in someone else's position.
That's the result of zero empathy.
So, okay. So speaking of Roger Stone and speaking of dumb, I want to play some sound from Felice's favorite after Nancy Mace, Bobo. I don't know if you've heard this yet, but this is...
I heard it. I know.
Okay, friends. So,
dear.
Okay. So there was a conversation at a hearing of which Bobo was a part of, right? Well, it's
Anna Paulina's hearing on the Kennedy assassination. It's their conspiracy theory hearing to distract from other things.
Again, the distraction. So this is Bobo questioning. Well, you can fill in the blanks. We'll talk about the other side.
Mr. Stone, you wrote a book accusing LBJ of being involved in the killing of President Kennedy. Did these most recent releases confirm or negate your initial charge?
She's talking to Oliver Stone, by the way.
Being involved in the assassination of President Kennedy.
I think you're confusing Mr. Oliver Stone with Mr. Roger Stone.
I haven't stated it yet.
Who?
Sorry.
It's Roger Stone who implicated LBJ in the assassination of the president. It's not my friend
Is that all the
Oliver
whispers
Stone.
were there? I may have misinterpreted that, and I apologize for that.
You may have misinterpreted it. Misinterpreting would be like a comma's in the wrong place, or you didn't necessarily understand the context of the conversation. Not having two people completely confused. Ladies and gentlemen.
Didn't say Roger Rabbit.
Correct. That would be an elected official. So I have this theory, Felice Tootle, I'm curious of your opinions on this. I have a theory that there are certain people connected on the staff to certain individuals in Congress who are intentionally setting up their leader to fail. How the fuck could you confuse Oliver Stone and Roger Stone, two entirely separate people? Yes, Oliver Stone made the JFK movie. We know that. That happened. Okay? We know that.
GD's GDing.
Right. But Roger Stone is a conspiracy theorist who now is going around on X sitting down with Alex Jones saying that the Wisconsin State Supreme Court election was rigged. And Bobo took the bait.
And you know what I really think happened there too is like, because Margarine does this. Remember when Matt Gaetz was like questioning an intelligence officer and was reading from like literal Chinese propaganda newspaper? And like what happens is they aren't doing their own research, right? They have staff who are doing research, putting questions together. Bobo's not very smart. She's obviously hiring people who aren't, they're not professional researchers. They're MAGA. They're in cognitive dissonance. So she had a list of questions and is reading them. And like even their own witness was like Michael Morley's like shaming her. Hilarious. I could not get enough. But the fact that people vote for her and so unanimously, that district she moved to used to be Ken Buck's district. Listen, he was far right fringe. I didn't like him, but he was a prosecutor. He was reasonable. He left the House because he's like, now we're going to just fake impeach presidents. Like, he left the House over the impeachment of Biden, and they just voted her into that ruby red district. To go from Ken Buck to Bobo, talk about a sleigh ride into disappointment.
Oh my God. As at last check, the market sits at down 1,540 points today. The Dow is just hemorrhaging. Every indice is just cratering. And there's, like Felice just talked about, we've been talking about all morning, you are witnessing a massive transfer of wealth that's happening right in front of us. Massive transfer of wealth.
Trump wins.
My feeling on your question is unintentional stupidity. I don't think any of them are smart enough to try to throw a wrench in the works to try to sabotage them. Although I think there might be a glimmer of hope with, believe it or not, with Waltz, with the Signal chat accidentally adding the editor. I think maybe
bringing a journalist in.
Yeah, I think maybe he sees what, because he's a veteran. And not the dumb kind of veteran that Hegseth is. So maybe he's finally seen a little bit of light, like, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into? I need to.
That's right. That's right. Toodle, thanks for jumping in today, bro.
Hey, man, good to see you. Das Vidanya.
See you later today. You're the best.
Take care, brother. Take care. And just as a reminder, 31.78% of the voting population voted for Trump. 30.84% voted for Harris. 1.06% voted third party, and 36.3% did not vote. More Americans voted for someone other than Trump. Not a landslide, not a mandate. FYI. So I don't know if there's a great follow for you on YouTube.
Also, not a majority. It's called a plurality.
Plurality.
For the love of all that is holy, MAGA, learn words.
If you don't follow Gary's Economics on YouTube, you should. He's a Brit. I love this guy.
I will do it
know
now.
What I'm talking about? Okay.
I don't, but I'm. If you are recommending it, I will follow him right now.
He's great. He does these various segments, does a lot of interviews, and he talks about things in terms that we all could learn from, because he just breaks it down so simply. So he's talking about poverty. He does a lot of conversations about poverty. He's published, this is an interview recently that he just did, and he's talking about poverty. And
I come from East London, okay? My friends can't feed their kids, okay? And if it was as simple as going out and being an entrepreneur, I can bet you they would do it. I'm sick of multimillionaires telling kids who can't afford to turn the heating on, you just need to be more entrepreneurial. It's sick, Dan. It's sick. But this gives people mental illness. It gives people mental illness. Tell them the truth, okay? We, your older generation, we took the opportunities, and now it is almost impossible to get out of poverty. And don't just stand up there and wave, your millions of pounds in front of them and say, if you were entrepreneurial like me, you could do it. You could have it. Because it's sick, because they can't. They can't feed their kids, Dan. They can't turn the heating on. Don't tell them to be more entrepreneurial. Fix the system that drives more and more and more of them into poverty every generation. I come from East London, okay?
This is what we've been saying all morning, right? He's exactly right. So the lie that the conservative movement in particular wants to tell people.
Try harder.
Pull yourselves up by the bootstraps. Try it. I don't know his last name. It's Gary's Economics.
It's Gary's Economics. It's at Gary's Economics. I just followed him on YouTube. Gary, Garys Economics.
He's great. He's great. There's so many little snippets like that. He talks about all kinds of things. He talks about the wealth gap in ways in which I've never really thought about it before, but he's literally talking about and he's a Brit, but he's talking about it globally, right? He's talking about being sick and tired of the multimillionaires and billionaires who made their money on the backs of cheap labor, who inherited their wealth, who didn't work a day in their life. As somebody who comes from corporate America, I've watched CEOs that weren't qualified to be in the position. They were just good politically. Right? They were just really good politically. They happened to be in the right spot at the right time. Here we are saying, listen, the lie that you've been told that you can just pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Again, we'll use the same argument we've used earlier. The conservative right, MAGA in particular, blue collar workers believe that they are suddenly going to be billionaires and millionaires. They expect to be picked. They expect to be invited into the club. No, the system is broken to benefit That's cool. Wow, that's really cool. The system is broken to benefit the rich. Period. That's it. They broke it. They're the ones that broke it to take advantage of the rest of us.
It's rigged. And listen, I say I am left of left, but I also recognize because corruption, like these ideas on the left that like we can all live in a communal society and everyone will behave and things will be fair are a bit delusional. Just like we know, same thing with libertarians' ideals. If you've never watched the HBO documentary, The Anarchists, see what happens when you try to live anarcho-capitalism in the real world. It's like that community in New Hampshire that were anarcho-capitalists and then bears took over the community. You know, like these extreme ideas, like this is the point is capitalism just has to be fairly regulated. We want free markets. We want people, but unfortunately they're not free, right? This is crony capitalism and we have to regulate markets to make sure that everyone has a chance to succeed, to stop monopolies from forming. I mean, the corporate corruption, and that's another subject we didn't touch on, that we are witnessing in real time is unprecedented. There is a monopoly taking watch Rocket Mortgage, right? I mean, this is a billionaire who is given to Trump. They are trying to take over the mortgage industry right now and create a monopoly. They are having cases. Russ Vought just dismissed a case against Rocket Mortgage, I believe. He's dismissing cases left and right for corporations that have bribed or donated to Trump. Like, that is the problem with what's happening. It basically how we are ordering our society now under Trump is if you have money, you have a voice. If you have money, you have value. That is not how society should be ordered.
I want to comment. I want to mention something that Jer said at Felice, you almost swore, and I was loving
fascinated.
Listen, I've been on the phone with Felice, so I know she does swear. I'm just saying, just not publicly.
Well, that depends on what we're talking about. I mean,
that's true.
A recent phone call, the shit we've been dealing with certain people on this internet. Yes, when talking about informed consent and people violating it, I will start swearing.
Indeed, you will. So now,
by the way, people, side note, deception invalidates consent. Tell men on this app.
Thank you for that point. So now we are morning after Liberation Day, the spin machine has started. So you're going to start to see a consistent message. And again, Felice and I both have a background in marketing, advertising, public relations. I will say this about the right. They are extremely tight in their messaging. It's very, very consistent. You're going to talk about it in terms of, obviously this is about taking back what's taken from us. This is about, American excellence, and we've been being taken advantage of for so long, blah, 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 blah. Howard Lutnick, I'm going to refer to him now as Nutlick.
Nutlick in the house.
He's already doing the rounds. So this is what he had to say.
You're going to see employment leaping starting today.
So if employment, in fact, leaps, and we'll come back to that.
The hell does leaping mean?
If prices themselves are also going up. So let's just level with people. In the short term, every economist seems to think the prices will go up. Should people be prepared for that, and for how long?
Well, I think you have to sort of understand how things work. When tariffs come into place, foreign goods may become a little more expensive, but domestic goods do not.
Wrong.
If you're looking at Poland Springs,
the whole fucking thing.
What? I mean, are you kidding me, Nutlick? Like, what the are you talking about? How did you not? So you don't have any idea how a capitalistic markets work. Let me help you. When prices rise on foreign goods, they also rise on domestic goods. That's how competition in a market works. The market bears what it will bear, right? What consumers will pay is the price. Why would you undercharge? And now with pricing algorithms, like part of corporate corruption, what I'm watching happen is now we're saying we're allowing people to use AI to collude to price fixing, right? Like, I mean, that is essentially what we're saying. And what does leaping mean? Employment's going to leap into a hole? Is that leap into a hole, to never to be seen again? Is that what you mean, Nutlick?
It is not just that. He's trying to equate it with finished goods. I mean, there are there are minerals, materials that we purchase abroad that will be tariffed to assemble such finished goods in the U.S. So it's a bold-faced fucking lie. So let's listen to him again.
So if employment, in fact, leaps, and we'll come back to that, it may not help much if prices themselves are also going up. So let's just level with people. In the short term, every economist seems to think the prices will go up. Should people be prepared for that, and for how long?
Well, I think you have to sort of understand how things work. When tariffs come into place, foreign goods may become a little more expensive, but domestic goods do not. So if you're looking at Poland Springs water versus, something, let's say Fiji water, the Poland Springs is not going to be more expensive. So for the first time in your lives, you're going to actually think about the Americans who make the products, the Americans who produce these products and work in these factories. It's time for us to take care of them instead of taking care of the world. You're going to see.
That's got to be the dumbest statement. Now you're comparing a luxury good compared to a run-of-the-mill good. I mean, that's not even... Can't even make it correct now. What are you talking about? That's like if I said Ferraris are more expensive than Toyotas. Like, what are you talking about?
Howard Nutlick, by the way, is the same guy that said he's a billionaire in the cabinet, Commerce Secretary, I think, right? Isn't he the Commerce Secretary? I think he's the Commerce Secretary. He talked about how his mother, that if her Social Security check didn't come, she wouldn't call and complain. And he said the only people that would call and complain about something like that would be people who are fraudsters.
Exactly. If you're worried, if there's nothing more insulting, if you complain about the Social Security Administration being broken and dissolved after you spent your life paying into it and expecting to be able to retire, then you're a fraud. If you complain, if you speak out against the obvious lies and the BS and the fact none of this had to happen. Talk about a self-inflicted wound or ballistic podiatry, as Ron DeSantis said in that one debate, shooting yourself in the foot. None of this had to happen. And if you point out that obvious fact that we're all being tormented for no reason, then you're a fraud. Love the logic.
Just a quick check of the Dow as we are moving through the day here. The Dow is down 1,478 points or 3.5%. I think who knows where it's going to end today. But you're going to start to see more and more of the spin from the right. People like Howard Nutlick, that are out there. Again, thank you for that. Out there trying to gaslight the American people to say, it's no big deal. Don't worry about that. Poland water. No big deal. No problem. Don't worry about that. You can still buy that. Felice, do you know, so this is one of the arguments that you hear from the right to say why there are no American-made cars in Europe. Do you know one of the main reasons why there are no American-made cars in Europe?
It's really expensive to export vehicles.
They don't fit on the road.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That too. I mean, literally the roads in Europe are like one half the size. What was the word I'm looking for? City planning. Like it's the same way on the East Coast. Like if you've lived on the East Coast versus the West Coast, that's what it is. You can't be driving a Hummer around, old roads on the East Coast. I mean, Europe, you can't. The cars you see in South America are tiny. Yeah. Tiny. I mean,
yeah, you're not going to see a lot of F-150s with balls hanging off the back of them in the streets in Spain or in the UK. And the reason I bring that up is because that's what you're going to be hearing today as well. How come there are no American-made vehicles first of all, if you had your choice to make between German-made and or American-made,
or Japanese-made, South Korean. I mean,
South
anything
Korean-made,
but.
Exactly. Think about I think it's BYD, the Chinese EV. I think it's BYD, something like that. They are some of the best in the world. BYD, thank you. They are so affordable. They are the best in the world. And there's a reason why the American car manufacturers have petitioned the government to make sure that those cars can't be sold here because they're spectacular.
Half as much as a Tesla.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So again, part of the pitch that you're going to hear today, because of the tariffs that have now been levied across everybody from Madagascar for whatever fucking reason to China, to Vietnam, to Cambodia, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, to the EU, the right is going to try to convince you, the talking heads are going to try to say, well, there's no American-made cars. States' rights, brother. Ain't no Ford F-150s.
Almost to 300K. Keep tapping. You guys are awesome. Almost amazing. Look at what we can accomplish. Keep tapping and we can get to 400K for facts. We can do it.
There's no oversized American glutton vehicles driving around the streets of Europe because they don't fucking fit. But they're going to try to tell you it's another reason. Don't let them, which again, because of Felice's massive brain being up all night, you'll probably be up for days now since you've been up already for hours. When we break these things down for you, it's because the media doesn't cover it properly.
And that's the real question. And that's why we need to look for independent media sources, because when capitalism is involved within the trafficking of information, it is corrupted. I mean, I was just talking about this, like the marked difference I was pointing out yesterday between the old Jake Tapper and now. Jake Tapper would never let someone lie. You know, like when he knew the truth about something, he would absolutely correct them and say, hey, here's the fact. I watch him now just let people openly lie. Sorry, Justice, go ahead.
Hi, Justice. Good morning. How are you doing today?
Morning. How are you two?
Fine, thank you. What's on your mind today?
First off, sorry if I sound groggy. My throat really is sore right now, so I can't speak that loud.
It's all right.
So, what was really on my mind really was well, I just heard, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I heard Nancy Pelosi's got a challenger for her seat. Is that true?
Hope so.
So
I want every incumbent to run opposed.
So do I, really. I mean, AOC.
When you say a challenger, do you mean a conservative or do you mean a progressive?
A primary challenger.
A primary challenger.
That's what I meant to say.
Yeah.
Want that?
It's about that time.
It is about that time. It really is. I also wanted to just point one thing out because I've been paying attention to the other races. I know this is a long way away that I got to bring it up. Okay. Chris Cuomo, really? New York? You're gonna give him you can't possibly give him another chance at this, right? He had his chance.
He's what? Is he running again?
Yes.
Oh, for the love of God.
Yep.
Like, come on, like you guys cannot be serious. Come on. Like he had his chance.
About a middle of the road weirdo with no opinions.
Yeah, he's had his chance. Vote
Andrew Cuomo. The other one. Chris was the
Did I say Chris?
So we're not talking about Chris, not the brother on News
I'm
Nation.
sorry.
No, we're talking Andrew. But
Okay, Andrew's back. Okay, gotcha.
Andrew, I apologize. But no, I just gotta come. Like, who would I recommend? How about the socialist Zoran, who's running? Yes, the socialist. Vote for him. Give him a chance.
Listen. The whole point is that I'm tired of, and this goes for I don't care what side of the aisle you sit on. Yeah. I do not think any elected official should run unopposed. I just don't. And that's why the right has had so many advantages because of division within the Democratic Party, they don't prop up a candidate. So you get Boebert in office unopposed initially. Yeah. You get MTG in office unopposed. Yeah. That can't continue to happen. At least force them to spend some money. At least force them to have to go out and campaign and to have a debate. It happens way too often. So I'm glad
the numbers are showing a pendulum shift. So never has there been a better time to oppose these people who have been running unopposed. You know what in every race.
Exactly.
Yes. I 100% support primaries for all of them. I mean, if they believe that they're the best for the job, let them prove it.
So here's the story. Nancy Pelosi facing primary challenge from former AOC aide, Sekhat. I'm going to butcher this name. Sekhat Chakrabarti, a former tech worker, is calling for generational change in the Democratic Party. Sweet. Let's go. Get it done.
Yeah.
Get it done.
That's what I'm talking about.
AOC's former chief of staff, that's a yes for me.
Agreed.
I'm sorry. Did you say something?
Anything else on your mind today?
So just one more thing. It's actually a question, really.
Sure.
So I've been asked, because as you know, I am a leftist. I've been asked, what is the main issue main way that we can go forward as leftists? Do we just take over the Democratic Party, or do we just create our own and then just smack them both? Me personally, I just think we should just take over the party. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, we just need to take over the party.
Yeah, I have an issue with leftists because a lot of leftists didn't show up in the election. So I tend to look at it as more, there are progressives and there are conservatives. You are either all in to move our society forward or you're not. And I think there are conservatives on the Democratic side, and I think that a lot of leftists not showing up in the last election or being protest voters are partly to blame, quite frankly. So I think
we just need an ideology shift, right?
Exactly.
Like, because the apparatus is built. Like, we don't want to try to build something new and then have to get people to change their registration and think differently. You know what I mean? Because that's a battle we probably don't have time to fight, like the rebranding and everything. All we need is to just say, hey, healthcare is a human right. And it's okay to say those things, you know? Exactly. And that's what we're seeing with what Bernie Sanders and AOC are doing. And by the way, April 12th, if you're somewhere near the West Coast, they're doing a rally in LA on Saturday, April 12th. I think it's around like 1 p.m. in a park, which will be huge. But that's the point. And when you hear it's Republicans going or conservatives going to these rallies, progressive, and what Bernie Sanders is doing is listening to people say, like, hey, I had to choose, like, who gets eyeglasses, my child or me? You know, I'm spending 20 grand a year on healthcare. That's a good, 35% of my check. Like, these are things, it's okay to say that childcare should be subsidized. It's okay to say healthcare is a human right. Like, we need to be authentic, and it's not about human rights are progressive. No, they're not. In the rest of the world, you can be a fascist and have universal health care. It's not progressive to be able to go to a doctor. I'm so tired of it.
Yeah, just to be clear, Matt, I did not sit out. I did vote. I would never tell anyone to sit out of an election. Just to point that out.
That wasn't personal, but that's sadly what we got from a lot of people.
Yes.
And I agree with Felice in particular on this topic, because I think it's about the ideological shift. Stop apologizing for demanding human rights be prioritized.
Yeah.
Stop saying, with our conversation with our person who's running for office, like, if you believe in responsible gun legislation, then talk about it. We have to stop. The Overton window continues to shift more and more right. We've got to stop that right now in its tracks. We don't necessarily need to appeal to MAGA voters to win elections. We need to appeal to the pain that they're feeling. We need to appeal to the fact that, listen, we are all being hijacked by corporate America. We are watching the transfer of wealth happening in front of our eyes. We are watching corruption and incompetency in government. Traditional democratic policies, far from perfect. But if you want to progress the nation, then fucking demand universal health care. Demand gun legislation. Demand change the tax code. Demand overfunding public education, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We have to stop wishing it happening and demanding that it happen.
Yep, I fully agree. But thank you for letting me up.
Thanks, Justice. Appreciate you.
You're awesome. A pleasure as always. Hey, I just looked on True Social because Hi Fish Trucker, he said to look, Trump is out of his mind, and he's on in all caps, doing some weird, pretending he's a doctor and a surgeon now. And it says in all caps, the operation is over. The patient lived and is healing. The prognosis is that the patient will be far stronger, bigger, better, and more resilient than ever before. Make America great again.
He's obviously,
man, is he not smart?
He's talking about. So I want to address Juliana. So Juliana, you said you won't vote for a far left party. What's a far left party? I think that's the issue that you're hung up
to the
on.
Doctors far left,
right? So again, so here's the thing about it. The thing about Bernie is that he has been talking about Medicare for all, universal health care, going back to the 80s, right? When I was supporting him back then, yes, I'm that old, helping him on campaigns when he was running for this, the mayor of the city of Burlington, Vermont. He's been talking about that, and that used to be considered extreme. Imagine in a world when you're talking about guaranteeing healthcare access to your citizenry, for that to be considered extreme. That's why we, as people that are on the left that prioritize human rights, I'm sick and tired of these tiny little bites of the apple. I am just tired of it. We should demand it. We got to be demanding changes to the tax code. Demanding
get money out of politics. Like,
Citizens
United.
About it,
it's not far left. The far right scream the same thing. Get money out of politics. That period. Because that's what happens. Every time we bring up universal health care, here come the lobbyists and the corporations and the billionaires and their money. And when that bill is done, Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act started as single payer health care and ended up as what it is now because of money in politics. Step one, and we have to get money out of politics. Period. We have to stop Congress from taking huge positions in the stock market. Stop stock trading. End term limit, or create term limits in Congress and get us healthcare. These are things that the far right, the far left all agree on. The only people that don't are the billionaires, the corporations.
Do you know why some of the most expensive real estate in America is on K Street? For those of you who have never been to DC, K Street is where the lobbyists live. That's where they live. That's their hive. They all gather together. They'll go to Foggy Bottom and then they go back to their palatial K Street house, right? And they are the ones, to Felice's point, because they lobby on behalf of Big Pharma or Big Oil or whoever it may be. Every time you start to hear the voters talking about why we can't have universal health care, they fire up their brand new BMW and their brand new Mercedes and they drive to the congressmen and women that they know can be bought. And they say, hey, just remember who put you here. Just remember who will keep you here. And then the hand comes out. Yes, sir. May I have another? And that's why we can't get progress.
Amen. Look what happened to Kirsten Sinema, our junior senator from Arizona. Went to Congress, a bisexual, progressive, left, I don't know, with like $12 million.
Exactly.
Whole other person nobody effing recognizes. It's the money. It's the corruption of the money. And I don't even like to say I'm far left anymore because I'm not. I just want I want to get money. I no longer want us to be oppressed by billionaires. That's the platform, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Felice is thinking about your kids, my kids, the future, so that we're not continually going down this road of just this crony capitalism and the rich just continue to rich.
Transfers of wealth. Like, we are not gaining none of this is not working. I want to help us all. This is not about, the left is right. Like, basic, unalienable human rights. That's what we should all have.
Yep, Dow's down now 1,554 points, or nearly 4%.
But Trump says they made America great again. I don't understand. He says that we won. I'm so confused.
So everybody, again, I think it's important that you all watch The Spin today. I know Felice will. I'll be watching it. This is what you're going to see. They're going to say, we've been getting ripped off because they don't understand what trade deficits are. They don't understand that the reason we have a bit of a deficit with Canada is because we buy a fucking lot of oil from them. Period. That's it. That is the root cause of any deficit we have between ourselves and Canada. They're going to blame all these other countries for ripping us off. They're not doing it. They do that intentionally. Like we've talked about this many, many times. How I believe a recession was part of their economic strategy so that they can enrich themselves. As the stock market is cratering and people are losing their retirement, and fortunes, family fortunes are gone, and they go after Social Security, and they go after Medicare, Medicaid, and they go after social programs. Everybody in their circle, when Trump says we're all going to get richer, it's their group. It's their small community. It's the billionaire class. They're the ones that are going to get richer. We are watching today. What we are watching today and witnessing, what about Biden? Got nothing to do with Joe Biden. This is conservative economic policy to enrich. Period. That's it. That's what they're going to be trying to push back against because they know it. And because they don't want to invest in education, because they want their voters to continue to remain dumb, they won't know any better. And they will believe it. And they'll believe what Howard Nutlick said. I can still buy my Poland Springs water. I'm just going to buy it all domestically.
It's not even true. If you guys think that when foreign import prices raise, that domestic prices don't raise, I mean, I can't help you with that, except for it's not true. Like in any sort of way. And I want to just say, can I just touch on when we were talking about the Anna Paulina Luna and what happened in the House, like how they just, Mike Johnson took their toys and go home. I just want to be clear what they are trying to do, because it's even bigger than like new parents want to be able to proxy vote from home. When in order to force that vote, because just to explain to you how insane, it's not just that what Mike Johnson did. In order to bring a bill to the floor for a vote, right, it has to go through the Rules Committee, which is run by the Republican leadership. And they would not let Anna Paulina Luna or anyone bring that bill to the floor. There are other bills similar, like stock trading, like trading stocks in Congress, like term limits. And they repeatedly, AOC and Anna Paulina Luna are constantly trying to get term limits brought to the floor for a vote, and they can't get it through the Rules Committee. So what they did is something called a discharge petition. They went door to door on Capitol Hill and got 218 signatures. And if you can get 218 signatures, you can go around the Rules Committee and you can force that to the floor for a vote. And that's what she did. And Mike Johnson was so furious about that what he did in that vote was attach another poison pill. They aren't just trying to stop that discharge petition. It's not just about saying, no, we don't want new parents to be able to vote by proxy for 3 months. What he is trying to do is say,
you got this for a second.
No more. Yeah, sure. Yeah, absolutely. What he is trying to do is say no more discharge petitions. Period. Never again, whether you're a Democrat, whether you're a Republican, nobody in Congress can collect 218 signatures again and bypass the Republican leadership in the Rules Committee to force a vote on the floor. Because what will come next is maybe they'll get the 218 signatures to try to stop Trump from doing these tariff things, right? That bill just made it out of the Senate. We had 4 Republicans yesterday join with Democrats to move a bill to stop, because don't think nothing can be done about these tariffs. Congress can stop this anytime they grow the spine. That's why I'll say, keep the pressure up. When you are bored, when you feel frustrated and anxious, start calling Congress people. You don't need a fax machine. You can fax people through apps or from the internet. If you write an email, if you fax them, if you call them, they have to read it. They have to listen to messages, right? That's their job as a public servant. So when we keep up this pressure, that's the reason what they tried to do is say there will be no more discharge positions in the House. No one can go around the leadership, because the next step will be they're going to try to collect signatures to stop these tariffs, or they're going to try to collect signatures and get around the Republican leadership in another way. And they're trying to literally shut down the majority of the people in Congress and their will and control it just through the Rules Committee and the leadership. And that is the most undemocratic. It has nothing to do with whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. They are oppressing everybody in the House and saying, you're not going around us again. That's what they're trying to do. It's one of the scariest things I've ever seen. And Anna Paulina Luna's point on the House floor is like, yeah, it's not just this they're trying to stop. They're trying to stop us from bringing term limits or anything else 218 of us agree on. They're trying to make it so they can't force votes to the floor. That's one of the last ways we can get around Mike Johnson and force change. It's so important to know. Someone said 3 calls a day with emails each. Great, Navy. That's what I'm saying. Whenever you feel anxious, make Congress people feel it too. Make them know. Keep the pressure up. It is working.
Every member of the House and the Senate has what's referred to as constituent services. It's part of their office. They all have it. My representatives know me by name. I'm in contact with them pretty regularly. I ask questions about all kinds of things. I'm very fortunate to be represented by Bernie, by Peter Welch, and by Becca Balint. I'm very fortunate. I've challenged some of their votes in the past, Peter Welch and Becca Balint in particular. But I think to Felice's point, they don't want their constituents to respond. They don't want, this is why you see the success of what AOC and Bernie are doing and other elected officials on the Democratic side going to Republican districts and speaking to voters. Now, people can criticize Cory Booker, and I'm surprised there's some people on the left that even criticize Cory Booker. I don't understand why. Now, you can call it performative. Politics is performative, but it's a point, because you can't have the same people that criticize inactivity from the left can't sit there and criticize Cory Booker for doing something for 25 hours. Now, did it do anything? It wasn't a traditional filibuster because it didn't stop the vote. But what it did is it called attention, which is exactly what we're talking about wanting to have happen. People want to see the Democratic Party stand for something, to stand up for something, to use whatever tools that they have. Yes, it was performative, no doubt about it. But from my perspective, I think it served a purpose. It said, okay.
I'm with you. I think it's important to talk about this too, because, and I also want to say, I say this, there's nuance to things. And if you're intelligent enough and you see both sides, it's not that you have to make a determination and say, this is black and white, right? Like politics is messy. So, and I agree from an advertising marketing perspective, hey, you asked for action, you asked for fight, like this is what I can do right now to raise awareness, to get this message out here. I 100% back what Cory Booker did from a minority perspective, as someone who has a black, Mexican, indigenous father, what he did and talked about Strom Thurmond and all of that, that moved me to literal tears. But I also just want to recognize, conversely, because I could debate both sides of an issue, was he wearing a pin in support of the Palestinian Jesus? Is he accepting money from AIPAC? And to Bernie Sanders' point yesterday that no one seems to be listening to, yesterday was 30 days that no food or water or any aid of any kind has gone inside Gaza, While Trump wreaks havoc here on our lives, we have sent no food or water, no supplies into Gaza for 30 days. They are literally being decimated. So do I also see how people could point out, because it's hard for me, we're talking about the transatlantic slave trade, the effects of that, what Strom Thurmond did, and what and that's so powerful, overcoming oppression, but then to also then support more oppression. It's the same interesting thing. Look what happened in 1930s Germany, and now the descendants of the survivors of that would now deny people medical aid and supplies inside Gaza. So it's complicated, right? Nobody's perfect. Things are complicated. So I just want to recognize you don't have to have all the right answers. And what we want to see is civil disobedience and people taking a stand. And for the first time, I think Cory Booker showed Senate Democrats, this is what it looks like to do something.
Correct.
Do you know what I mean? To take a stand, to use your voice, to communicate. So I do understand the dissent of people saying, hey, there's no supplies going inside Gaza. Talk about that. Or the real action would have been, the Senate Democrats getting it together and shutting down, the government and not funding the government. I get those things, but we've got to start somewhere. And from what I can say from the advertising marketing perspective, what Cory Booker did, you cannot buy that type of awareness, that type of, instilling hope in the resistance is priceless. I could cry right now thinking about it. So yeah,
I agree with you.
Yeah. It's priceless.
I know you're a big fan of Chris Murphy. I'm a big fan of Chris Murphy too.
And he stayed with him all night.
Exactly. And I think if so again, Felice and I tend to refer to it's progressives and conservatives. So I won't speak for you, but I personally don't want Democratic Republican for me, because there are conservative Democrats that are holding back our country as well. So let's be real. That's just my own interpretation of that. But people are looking for leadership, right? In the Democratic Party, they're looking for leadership, and leadership comes in a variety of faces, complexions, colors, ideologies. What we're seeing is people looking for windows into leadership. Chris Murphy is a leader in the way in which he speaks. Cory Booker is a leader in the way in which he speaks. Yes, he was groomed and sort of, his career was sort of supported by Chuck Schumer. And I get that. And Cory's way too status quo moderate for my blood.
Let me give you another example. Was I very upset with Cory Booker for accepting a ton of money from AIPAC and spending a year lobbying to get TikTok shut down? Yes, exactly. that did bother. I lived through that. Yep, so you know what I'm saying? It's complex, right?
It is.
But
it is.
So you just you can understand it's complex, but what Cory Booker did was good. Good trouble.
I completely agree. And Victoria says this a lot. The Democratic Party is like public transportation. It gets us closer to where we want to go. Because we certainly know that conservatives by design want to keep things the way they are. Although today's conservative party wants to regress our society backwards, where women should stay at home, the rights of the marginalized community should not exist, women shouldn't vote, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So that I think this is an opportunity, and you're going to find out the ones that are courageous. People are looking for leaders.
Yes, exactly. Speak up, let your voice be heard. That's so true. And just understand and start to, I think what a good move for us is to understand we are in a coalition, right? We are not going to agree with everyone's positions on anything, but we all need to vote together. And I think someone said in the, we've got to stop to a certain degree with the purity testing, and just like you're saying, what we want to see is action.
Exactly.
Stop talking about it, be about it. And what I saw was Cory Booker finally being about something.
Agreed. And I think, and we'll see more of that. We'll see more leadership from faces that we know, and perhaps faces that we don't, names that we hear every single day and names that we don't. I mean,
yes, that was Doughboy. Thank you, Doughboy.
Yeah, there was a senator from Illinois who no one had really heard of until that person made their mark at a convention. His name was Barack Obama, right? So there is, you never know where leadership is going to come from. And I was impressed. And again, this is my issue that I have with people on the left. There's prominent creators in this space who are critical of him, calling it performative. Well, politics is performative. Let's be real. I mean, it is performative by design. It depends on what you're trying to do. What's the end game? From Cory Booker's perspective and others, people like Chris Murphy and others, it's reminding people of what's at stake, because we know what's at stake. How we get there is going to depend on us.
When is the last time a Senate Democrat, maybe it was, instilled that much hope in somebody? You tell me, that made people believe, that showed people what is possible. Oh, if he can do this, I can do it. I can resist. And I'll tell you,
good point.
Don't get me wrong. It's going to come from us, and the pressure we are putting on from them. This is a bottom up movement, and they need to now from the top down meet us in the middle. Right. And that's what we need to do. We need to put the pressure on them. When I saw that 80-year-old grandma be carried out by 8 policemen in Tennessee because she said, hey, you can take me to jail. I will not get out of this chair. You need to stop disappearing students. I could cry thinking about it right now. But it's those acts, when you show people what you're made of, that will inspire the rest of us to keep fighting.
Yeah. I mean, it's status quo no longer works. Do respect Michelle Obama. When they go low, we go high now. When they go low, we go lower. Sadly. And that's the game. That's the game now in the body politic in America. We still have power. We still have the power. I'm not there yet where people saying that we're not going to have elections. I'm not there yet. There's people in this space that I have a lot of respect for that are saying that we're not going to have any more elections. I'm not there. Obviously, if that's the case, then the entire thing is
we're going to fight all the way, right? Maybe that's true. Maybe it is over. Maybe there's no hope, but the point is you still dig your heels in and resist every step of the way. You will have to drag my dead body weight off. I'm not going to make it easy for you. I will be fighting and screaming till the very end.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the TikTok ban, because technically TikTok is banned in America. We just were given graces by the Trump Justice Department that people, the app stores and the ISPs are not going to be fined these massive penalties. Well, the deadline is nearing. I don't know if you heard about this, Felice, but the deadline is nearing. Saturday is the day that it technically goes dark unless some concessions are made.
We have PTSD from the last Saturday this happened, and I'm
crazy. Yes. So as the deadline nears for TikTok's Chinese parent to cut a deal to divest controlling ownership of the app or face a U.S. ban, new bidders are coming out of the woodwork. Among the interested investors in TikTok is Tim Stokely. You know who Tim Stokely is? Felice? He's the founder of OnlyFans.
Aren't they Canadian? Are they Canadian? Or no, wait, no, sorry. I was thinking of, what's the corn site? I was thinking of something else. Cornhub.
So the opt-in social media platform known for hosting schmexually explicit content, Stokely, who founded OF in 2016, left the company in 2021. Stokely's new social media startup, Zoop, which says it, quotes, rewards both creators and their community members for their engagement, teamed with the HBAR Foundation, which manages the Hedera cryptocurrency network, on a joint bid to purchase TikTok. So Amazon had submitted a last-minute offer.
Better than Elmo. Better than Elon. Anything is better than Elon. I heard someone was saying Jeff Bezos, I get that he's a union buster and awful. Like, I could go on and on about how bad he is with labor and with Amazon, but I'll tell you this, he owns Twitch, and as someone who's live on Twitch right now, I can tell you he runs a pretty fair platform. Like, he's not making it an unsafe place to be.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
So,
I mean,
I think it's interesting that, here we
to that point, also follow us on all other platforms. In my link tree, you can find me if and when TikTok isn't available. Steve and I will do lives together, and I will just be live in Streamlabs. And like right now, I'm pushing this live. I'm usually in TikTok Studio, but I'll just be live in Streamlabs, and I'll push it to YouTube, to TikToks or whatever. So lives will continue.
They will.
We will figure it out. We will figure it out. Nobody's going away. Just make sure you follow people now.
You're not getting rid of us. We'll gum on your shoe, so to speak. Hi, Callie. How are you today? Callie, are you there? Hi.
So I joined back when we were still talking about the getting rid of the Department of Education in Wisconsin. And one of the things I wanted to do was make sure that we're still talking not only about Susan Crawford's success in her election, but Jill Underly's. She's not getting as much conversation.
Superintendent of Public Instruction, raise the roof.
Potential loss of our... Yes, and she is definitely against vouchers, and she really wants to make sure that our students and our curriculum is the best that it can be. She actually said, "We must stand united to protect the funding and resources that our schools and kids so desperately rely on to succeed." I just wanted to make sure that we keep that in our conversations.
I think that's a fantastic point. I'm so glad you mentioned that. I think Wisconsin is a potential bellwether for the impact of the 2026 election. Obviously, the voters turned out really high turnout. I was tracking that superintendent race as well. I'm really glad you brought that up, Callie. Thank you for mentioning it today.
Yes.
You have a good day.
Thank
See you later.
Yeah, I mean, those are the examples of, it's a great point, because the different positions, right? Such an important position. Look what the superintendent of public schools is doing in Oklahoma. Arizona, we moved up in the rankings of awful states and how they educate people. We were 49. We're now 48 because the superintendent of public instruction in Oklahoma, Ryan J. Walter, has ran that, is spending millions on Trump Bibles instead of educating kids, and their math and reading scores slipped. We didn't get better, they just got worse.
That's right. And I want to talk about that in just a second. This came out, our mods are on as they are every day. So in a letter sent to employees this morning, Antonio Felice, Stellantis' chief operating officer for the Americas, said the company is, quote, continuing to assess the medium and long-term effects of these tariffs on our operations, but also have decided to take some immediate actions, including temporarily pausing production at some of our Canadian and Mexican assembly plants. Those actions will impact some employees at several of our U.S. powertrain and stamping facilities that support those operations. Here it comes. There you go. Stellantis, domestic auto manufacturer. Here we are. We've arrived. Make America great again. When does the winning start, Felice?
I thought that they were going to call Trump after yesterday and ask to bring factories to America. I can't even do it. It's just absurd what is going on. It's not sustainable. That's what I'll tell you about these tariff rates that Trump imposed, which just, again, we talked about this earlier in the broadcast, but since it's been a few hours, it is simply the trade deficit divided by the country's imports to America, and it is not sustainable. This will not be able to be sustained.
Since Erica is calling in today from British, I think we have to slap her
from
with
British. What a great place! Calling from British. I love Erica.
With a tariff.
So listen, if you slap me with anything, there'll be charges. Do you understand?
Hey now.
Unless I ask nicely, obviously.
So what's it like over there today? I'm curious with
It's
everything that happened
really
yesterday.
freaking sunny and beautiful is how it is today.
Nice.
It's like 20 degrees Celsius, which is about something like, I don't know, 5 billion degrees Fahrenheit, something in that region. It's delightful. But listen, I want to push back a little bit on Cory Booker being performative. I don't think that was performative. I think it was a performance, because performative indicates that you're doing it just for the sake of it. That's not what he was doing. He was doing it because it's what he can do right now, as Felice said. It is what he can do at this point in the proceedings. So I disagree that it was performative. I think it was a performance because it's the action that he can take for now.
I agree with that. I think that's a fair distinction. Absolutely.
And I wanted to ask, did you see the thing that was somebody posted it on X, that the amount of the tariffs placed on each country?
The little sign chart that he had. This little.
Yeah, but that it's not based on. It's based on the trade deficit divided by.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah, it's based on the trade deficit divided by the country's imports to America.
Yep. With some census data thrown in there too. Yeah.
Which is freaking ridiculous, because I think when I started listening to you, you were talking about the deficit with Canada being because Canada gives you oil. And you know, Steve, because I worked this out, I sat and did the maths. Per United States citizen, $1,500 is spent in Canada. Per Canadian citizen, $8,500 is spent in the US. Mm-hmm. So actually, if you look at it on a per capita basis, it's a huge trade deficit on the part of Canada. Like they are the ones that are losing out in terms of how much money they're spending in another country, not the other way around. There's only 30 million people in Canada. The US has a population of 340 million. Per person, what's being spent in Canada is tiny in comparison.
But that's not what trade, but like that, I mean, I'm not saying that is true, but that is not what trade deficits are about though, right? Like it has to do with corporations. It's not about what each individual person spends or doesn't spend, right? The trade deficit with Canada does have to do with oil, but more importantly, the reason we have trade deficits is because of the value of the US dollar, the cost of labor, the cost of goods, the cost of overall manufacturing and exporting from this country, which is no fault. As long as the value of our currency stays high, we will have trade deficits. When countries want to export more, they devalue their currency to make their exports more affordable and more attractive to other countries, which as long as the American dollar remains the gold standard, we will not be doing. So yeah, like trade deficits will exist. So it's either Trump doesn't, I think it is that he does not understand economics. He does not understand trade deficits, period. And also he's being in a combination of him being a pathological liar and being disingenuous.
Yeah.
So, I mean, trade deficits will always exist unless the value of the US dollar comes down.
Yeah. I think my point is more, if you want to be annoyed at how much money you're spending in another country, you're far more justified in your annoyance as a Canadian than you are as a US citizen. Because, yeah. And I think, that's the point that I'm trying to make is, they have a much smaller population of people, yet they don't actually, the deficit isn't that big considering the size of the population there. I would have imagined it to be a bigger deficit than it actually is.
What's been the reaction in British today, Erica? Because I know the EU got called out, right? So what about in your country? What's been the reaction? Have you been able to get anything from the local sources?
Well, I think there is very much optimism that because currently Keir Starmer has a reasonable relationship with Donald Trump in comparison to the EU, for example, that there will be some workaround for this. But it's just freaking ridiculous. Like, there are no economists who are going to tell you that this is a good idea. Not one.
Not one. Nope.
And economists have
Scott
been talking
Bassett looks like he has a pew-pew to his head. Everything's fine.
Yeah, or Howard Nutlick. He'll tell you that it's a good thing.
Yeah. And the thing is, they've been talking about it all day. So anyone that doesn't know, our government does something called a spring statement, which is like halfway through the year. When the new financial year starts, we have the budget every autumn, which sets the tone for the next financial year. But we have a spring statement, and they've adjusted how much they think our GDP will grow by. They thought it would grow by 2%, but specifically because of Trump's tariffs, they are now saying they've adjusted that to 1%. They think it will only grow by 1%, but basically it's 0.5% unless we put in reciprocal tariffs, because reciprocal tariffs are then going to bring our GDP down, our GDP growth down by another 0.5%. So if we put in reciprocal tariffs, and by the way, these tariffs are not reciprocal,
Exactly.
because nobody has a blanket tariff on the US. That's not a thing that anybody else has. So there are tariffs on particular things, or targeted tariffs, but no blanket tariffs. So it's not reciprocal because it's not like for like in terms of the tariffs that we have on the US or any other country does. But if we then put on reciprocal tariffs, so a blanket tariff on everything that comes in from the US, that's then going to reduce our GDP also. So it's bananas. It's bullshit. He's a shit stick. I don't know what else to say.
That about comes it up. I appreciate that.
Mutually assured destruction is where we're all headed.
Yeah. Well, and the problem is, although it's mutually assured, it's not mutually consented upon, right? Nobody else.
None of us are consented. I mean, Trump is the only person. There's no informed consent here. No.
Yeah. Well, it tracks with him.
Right. Anyway, I've driven half the way home. I've stopped to talk to you, and now I'm going to drive the rest of the way home. So have a lovely rest of your day.
We love you too. Bye, Erica. Love you.
Speak to you later. Bye.
Okay,
Oh,
bye.
Jelly, you're in the UK. Enjoy it. Enjoy freedom.
I want to touch on this particular story because I think as we try to be consistent when it comes to hyperbolic types of stories, because everything that we hear that comes from Trump's mouth, I know that there's that AI audio that was created about daylight savings time and that grandma was going to die an hour early. We know that was fake, right? But people bought it. People in our spaces even shared it. So I think it's really, really important that we be sincere about this, because there is a story going around now that Mike Johnson appeared prominently on Grindr. Okay, so this is not about kink shaming.
I didn't know that. I didn't know this.
Yes. So there was a screenshot apparently that Mike Johnson was messaging someone on Grindr. There is no evidence of that. This is one of those stories that's become a rumor that people want to grab onto. So I am cautioning everyone to please be careful when you see stories, because if we start spreading information, much like the right has done in the past, then ultimately we're no different. So there was a TikTok video used, a cropped version of a publicly available photo of House Speaker Mike Johnson taken by a fellow House member at a March 4th event alongside what looked like screenshots of a Grindr app chat. Fake Grindr conversations are easy to create using online generators. The owner of the TikTok account that shared the messages told PolitiFact that his source said the message thread was 2 years old, but it included a photo taken in March. A TikTok user posted screenshots appearing to show a conversation Mike Johnson had with someone else on the dating app Grindr. Quote, "It's always the MAGA Christians," read the caption under the March 23rd TikTok, which included a photo of Johnson and the message, "What time should I pick you up from your hotel?" The message's color formatting matched the texting color scheme on Grindr, which is largely used by members of the LGBTQIA community. The claim spread rapidly across TikTok and onto X and Threads, but there's no evidence to support these screenshots' authenticity. Johnson's office declined to comment. So, again.
Well, yeah, I didn't even know about that. Oh, quickly, my handy helper, thank you so much for the $20 on Cash App. You're amazing. So grateful for your knowledge. That makes me want to cry. You guys don't know how much I appreciate you. Again, everything I do, all my research is supported by you guys. Real free market capitalism. Someone tell Trump. Free capitalism in action, and I appreciate you guys so much. And just a reminder, if TikTok does go away on Saturday, please follow us, Fax and I, on our link trees. Follow us on every platform. I mean, it's super important, but we're not going away. We'll still be here.
You're not getting rid of us. Good morning to our Canadian friend, Benny.
Almost to 400K. Keep tapping.
Friendly neighbor from up north.
I'm looking for some asylum. Are you married? If I need to marry you, can I?
We, my partner and I joke all the time about it, Felice. We're like, if we absolutely have to, we will marry. Strictly platonic, get the green card marriage if we got to get people up here.
I'm indigenous Mexican. Yeah, no, I know all about it. So many people in my family have done it.
My goodness. Felice, so great to see you. Love seeing you live. Steve, your presence was missed sorely yesterday. Glad to see you here. Love you both. You're looking great today.
Appreciate
loving the conversations happening today. Couple of things I want to go over. I know it was mentioned a little earlier. There was mention of the F substance and the effects of that, and we are seeing it at least locally where I am. I have a couple of sources who work in the healthcare fields and deal with a lot of addictions. We've been noticing that there are more cases of like ODs and unfortunately unalivements due to substances because they are not able to get their sources for the F substance. So we're seeing a lot more, as any addict would, you're going to go seek out another source. You're going to find your fix elsewhere. So we're seeing a lot more cases of volatile mixtures and volatile cocktails happening pretty much. We've got some folks I know who work in the field who would distribute Narcan kits. I don't know if anybody's familiar with what that is.
Oh yeah, I used to give them, when I almost died 5 years ago. Yeah, I would give my leftover Narcan to unhoused people.
Yep. And so what we're seeing happening is when they go to administer those kits, normally what would happen is, their body flushes it out, they soil themselves, they're sick all over themselves, yada yada. But now, because of all of these things getting mixed in there, their bodies are now having really violent reactions to it. So we're seeing the effects of that in real time. It's terrible stuff, but that's. That's a
more of the F substance is coming from the U.S. into Canada. We are part of your problem, is what is important to say, not the other way around. Trump continues to lie and imply as if the F illicit substance is coming from Canada here. In fact, it's like in 2024 is 0.2% of U.S. border F illicit substance seizures came through Canada. Much more, in fact, is being trafficked, as is true, from the U.S. into Canada. So we're sorry about the constant stream of lies and also the trafficking of that into your country that we are responsible for.
Sorry, Benny.
We know. We know where it's coming from, and our anger is not at the American people per se. It's at Pumpkin Spice Palpatine and his cabinet of wackadoos here. Also, I don't know if anybody's mentioned.
I love alliteration. That's a good one.
Elon Musk stepping down from his position at Doge to quote unquote return to the business world.
Correct. As Tesla stocks and sales have cratered down 13%.
13%. Yeah, he's hemorrhaging. Is somebody learning a lesson? And let's keep it going too, because he's going to try to keep creeping in. You know what I mean? This is just official. I'm sure his shareholders are like, we're about to oust you.
I think it was pretty funny because Vivian, his his estranged daughter was on Hassan Piker's Live not that long ago. It's like, dude, I was 12 years old and he wanted me to carry him fucking Overwatch, and I'm like, you dork.
Just some breaking news. We've talked about Signalgate. We've talked about Mike Walls using Gmail. So the White House has fired at least 3 National Security Council staffers, 3 sources familiar with the move. The firings came after Laura Loomer, the far-right activist who once claimed 9/11 was an inside job, urged President Trump during a Wednesday meeting to get rid of several members of his NSC staff, including his principal deputy national security advisor, claiming that they are disloyal. One of the sources said the firings were a direct result of the meeting with Loomer. It was not immediately apparent this morning whether Principal Deputy National Security Advisor Alex Wong was among those who had been dismissed. He was on the Signal thread, by the way. One of the sources speculated that the National Security Advisor Mike Waltz may have been reluctant to fire him because he's been embroiled in the controversy surrounding the leak of controversial Signal messages related to strikes on Yemen, and that his team had been under fire since. The 3 officials include Brian Walsh, Director of Intelligence and a former top staffer for now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who again was also on the thread, Thomas Boudry, a Senior Director for Legislative Affairs who previously served as Walsh's Legislative Director in Congress, and David Feith, a Senior Director overseeing technology and national security who served in the State Department during Trump's first administration. CNN reached out to the National Security Council. Waltz had been in the Oval Office for other meetings when Loomer arrived Wednesday for a private audience with Trump and stayed as the president met with Loomer. One of the people she specifically targeted was Wong. Loomer has publicly questioned his loyalty to Trump and criticized him privately as, quote, a never Trumper. Quote, out of respect for President Trump and the privacy of the Oval Office, I'm going to decline on divulging any details about my Oval Office meeting with the president, Loomer told CNN this morning. It was an honor to meet with the president and present him with my findings. I will continue working hard to support his agenda, and I will continue reiterating the importance of strong vetting for the sake of protecting the president and our national security interests. Only hiring the best.
So three human shields to take the fall for something that's not their fault, and also correct. Because they're not trying to stop the incompetence. They're trying to find they're trying to root out anyone who might tell the truth. Hopefully, correct. These people will become whistleblowers. Like this is more night of the phone, though. It did get sucked in. We know. It's exactly. No one's fault. The phone suck things up all the time, but I mean this is more night of the long knives stuff, and literally our president, who could not find his way out of a paper bag to save his life, is now getting direct advice from Laura Loomer. Like, I mean, I don't know how much lower we can sink at this point. The bar is in hell.
Well, it's bigger than just that. So Night of the Long Knives is a great analogy, but using the words that they've used in the past. So never Trumpers, disloyal. So the entire message machine now will be that these people are the ones that are responsible for getting Jeffrey Goldberg into the chat. It's these people.
They're the wheels. Yeah, they're right under the wheels of the bus. And that's that was the point. Like, someone has to take the fall, offer up 3 sacrificial lambs. Here's the people I'm most suspicious of. If it came down to, wouldn't be loyal to you, aren't real hardcore cognitive dissonance MAGA.
I think those 3 names, and I'm looking this up as we talk here. Let's see.
Keep tapping the screen. Almost to 400K. We can do it.
If y'all aren't tapping the screen, I'm going to assume you like having wet socks. I assume you like stepping on Lego. And if you don't tap that screen, J.D. Vance, the vice president, is going to break into your home and steal your couch. You don't want that to happen, so please tap that screen. Tapping is clapping, sharing is caring.
So I'm trying to find, because I'm looking through the text thread now, because those names were mentioned in the text thread as being the representatives from the various agencies that they represent. Alex Wong, for example, was a name that Mike Waltz put forward as his spokesperson. So Mike Waltz invites him into this conversation, and now he's going to take the literal bullet. That's crazy.
I mean, just to be clear, nobody has any question who did that, right? It was Mike Waltz. Mike Waltz did that.
Dated March 13th at 16:28 p.m. Team establishing a principals group for coordination on Houthis. This is from Mike Waltz, particularly for the next 72 hours. My deputy, Alex Wong, is pulling together a Tiger team at deputies agency's chief of staff level, following up meeting in the sit room this morning. So again, they're going to find somebody to blame other than the people to blame. That's listen.
One to blame but Mike Waltz.
Exactly. If you are connected with MAGA politics and your boss fucks up, you're the one that will get disappeared.
I hate to say it, but the game was rigged from the very start.
Well, that's all they all are, or a series of human shields. Even Laura Loomer, I mean, for Trump, like whoever, you know what I mean? But they'll start with the people underneath that layer of human shields first. But like, it is interesting to watch Trump. Like he just, like, he doesn't want to give Jeremy or Goldberg a scalp, right? Like that's the point. Like this is why he's not firing Mike Waltz. Like he's embarrassed, but he's not going to let Goldberg from The Atlantic in his mind win, which it's not winning. Like this has nothing to do with Goldberg. Mike Waltz messed up.
He did.
Over and over. He's on Gmail using his personal Gmail. Did those three random people, did they force Mike Waltz to conduct National Security Council business on his private phone on Gmail? No one made Mike Waltz do any of this. He's an incompetent buffoon.
Pete Hegseth sharing attack plans, claiming that he didn't. Pete Hegseth inviting his wife to meetings with dignitaries and other national security related officials without security. Mike Waltz inviting journalists that got sucked into his phone on top secret communications, and he's using Gmail.
But somehow these three people are responsible for this.
Like we discussed earlier, the Trump administration is DEI for mediocre men.
We made a joke in the chat. We're like, Grindr chat would be a lot more secure than Signal. And I'm like, could you imagine talking about war plans in the, bumhole chat? Like, my goodness.
Well, like Greg said earlier, I mean, Hillary's was much more, her emails were much more secure than Signal because we never got access to her emails. But anyway,
what about Biden? What about Biden?
Thank you for jumping in today, buddy. You want to do your out as you always do?
Well, Steve, as I always say, elbows up. Keep your stick on the ice, folks. Take care.
See you, buddy. Be good. I think Benny might be putting out signs saying, lavender marriages for everyone these days. I did not know what that term meant until recently.
No, what is it? I don't know.
It's a marriage for convenience. So
yeah.
To get your citizenship or whatever.
Oh, I never heard that in the Hispanic community, but I've never heard that. I didn't know that's what it's called. Cool.
Yeah. All right.
Well, I'm in the market.
I'm checking.
I would love to live in Scotland, like New Zealand.
I want to address a couple things as somebody who lives in a border state, the other border, the really, really long border, the longest international border in the world, by the way. I'm 29 miles from said border. The amount of traffic that we get from our Canadian neighbors is significant. In Vermont that does not exist depends on tourism. And when there are certain Canadian holidays, the parking lots are jam-packed with our Canadian neighbors. I know they are coming down here to get the really good syrup. I'll leave that alone. They won't like that conversation. But this has a direct impact on small states with small economies.
Hold on. Lavender marriages, I knew I heard that term. No, that's like someone's a beard. Lavender marriages are specifically about the LGBTQIA. They're not they're not for citizenship. No, that's someone who's like, I can't be gay in public, so I need someone to marry me, so I'm straight.
Yeah, I think you're hearing it more and more now as it relates to citizenship.
Oh, I was gonna say, I've never heard someone say it about. So because lavender, it's someone, someone who's helping someone hide their sexuality.
Yes, exactly. So, I don't think I phrased that correctly, but you're hearing it more and more now as people are wanting to leave our country to try to find you can have a quick Uppies Moth. Sure. Sorry. There you go. Okay. I just was going to talk about the impact of the Canadian dollar on small economies like the state of Vermont, for example, New Hampshire, the state of Maine. Hi, Moth. What you got?
I'm not doing really well right now. I just wanted to let people know that, fuck you, first off, if you voted for Trump or if you were a protest voter, fuck you very much, because because of that, and all this shit happening with the Department of Education, and because my full-time job is a student loan servicer who's contracted through the Department of Education, they are now starting to quote-unquote downsize our departments. My last day is tomorrow. I just got fucking fired. I was given the option to either be terminated or work through tomorrow and count it as a 2 weeks. So I just got out of.
I have so much empathy.
So sorry
for the situation, that I wish I could do something about.
So if you protest voted or voted for this shit, this is what's happening.
I have a list in my phone of people who went around this app for months saying that they weren't voting. They couldn't bring themselves to vote for Kamala. I remember every creator, every person who I had to listen to say that for months. And now here we are.
Yeah.
So sorry.
So sorry.
They haven't said anything yet if it's directly correlated to all of that, but I can only guess that there's going to be more. So yeah, that's great because, we're in the process of trying to move out of our house and into an apartment. And I was planning on that whole trip in June and everything else. And now I don't know what the fuck we're going to do. I mean, I still have my part-time job, luckily, but, yeah, I thought that usually when my company does like mass layoffs and stuff like that, because, they're downsizing or whatever, they put out like an email ahead of time. I haven't seen anything come through my desk, like that as of yet, but the way that they're doing things right now, because I'm not the first, but, and my supervisor couldn't really give me a lot of details, which leads me to believe that it has something to do with everything that's going on. So
let's connect later, Moth. Let's strategize a little bit. Okay.
Yeah. I was going to ask if I could give you a call later today or something.
Yeah, let's talk later. Let's see if we can navigate through this. I'm really sorry.
Yeah,
this is real life, folks. This is real life. This isn't a movie. This is real life.
Benny said, "Send lamps to me."
Right, indeed. Okay. Thanks for letting us know.
We'll connect later.
Okay.
I'll message you.
I love you, friend.
Love you too.
Talk to you later.
All right.
God, heartbreaking. My heart breaks for you and for everyone. None of this has to happen. I just want to be clear. Do you know what I'm saying? None of this has to happen.
Yep. Agreed.
Call your Congress people, fight. This is what we're fighting for.
We've discussed this in numerous ways this morning, and and I know Felice being a former teacher, and I've talked about my respect and admiration for the profession of teaching, and we know that teachers just want to teach. We know that dissolving the Department of Education and going after teachers and making claims about indoctrination is to keep the electorate stupid and uninformed, so that they can't be aware of things like this, that they're told that the Department of Education is indoctrinating your kids. Meanwhile, the Department of Education is there for civil rights protections for people in Moth's community, for example, or children with disabilities, or just to make sure that everyone in our country has access to a public education. Instead, people want to say school choice. People who could never afford to send their kids to these schools, thinking that a voucher is going to supplement all the costs. Keep in mind, a private school can exclude anybody that they want to. They don't have, just because you're in that community does not mean they're going to accept you. Do you think private schools with vouchers are going to allow brown-skinned people in there? I don't think so. Muslims, Jews, I don't think so.
We know. I mean, I talk about this all the time. Like 97% of the vouchers being used, we're one of the oldest voucher states in Arizona. 97% go to upper middle class white children. Okay, so your voucher covers what? 50% of the tuition at a private school. But where are private schools? Rich neighborhoods.
Absolutely.
Can a parent working 2-3 jobs drive that kid to school, pick them up from school? Can they afford school lunches? Can they afford the uniforms? Can they afford the books? Can they afford all the things that come along, the additional fees? Of course not. And let's say you can afford all that. Like, it's a miracle you can. On top of that, they don't have to let you in. That's the point. And I was showing Steve articles. ProPublica is doing a series on segregation schools in the South. That is the number one. Vouchers are being used to segregate schools based on race, based on religion, based on upper class mobility, upward mobility, all sorts of reasons. So even if you can get to a school, it does not mean they have to let you in. And the saddest part is this is most going to affect people that voted for Trump, rural areas, right? There's maybe one private school, maybe not. You know what I mean? And when public schools close, when public schools are defunded, people in rural areas are suffering. I mean, it's unbelievable. As well as, and also with disabilities, IEPs, there's no place, they don't have the specialized teachers, special ed teachers that you need to handle IEPs and the resources. I mean, none of that stuff is available at private schools. This is not the answer. It's just another way to defund education and force children into the workforce earlier.
Goes back to the beginning of our conversation today, right? You demoralize a society so much that people feel like their only way out is to either join the military or to go work in the mines. So who benefits? The military industrial complex
straight to the military,
and corporations,
or go to end up in prison, try to do something illegal. You can be part of our slave labor prison pipeline there as well. There's a few places they want you to end up. And how we are now, Trump is reordering society. Oh, you have $5 million, you can be a citizen. Correct. Oh, you have money, you can have an education. The rest of you get in the military, get in the mines. I mean, that's literally, we are ordering our society now, saying people who have money have value. The rest of us do not.
The number one contributing factor to crime, Felice, is
poverty.
As we are watching today, again, the stock market is down 1,500 points today, 1431 to be exact. We are seeing a massive wealth grab that is happening in front of our eyes. Hedge funds, all, numerous entities who've got money are watching their assets increase on the backs of everyday Americans. You're firing people who are supporting student loans so that your students can get educated. You are closing public institutions. You are closing healthcare centers. You want your electorate to be unhealthy. You want them to pass away early. Elon Musk has talked about it in regards to Social Security. People are just living too long. The greatest country on earth? I don't think so. This is the reality that we are living in right now. Because in my opinion, a lot of entitled leftists didn't bother to fucking show up.
Amen. And I mean, this is the lesson I wish we didn't have to learn. So I keep thinking about Moth. My heart breaks it's always the most vulnerable, and it's the people that sit in privilege, specifically like white men. It's true. They will, largely will be unaffected, right? They could survive regardless of who is sitting in the White House, regardless of who is in power. They will be just fine. You just recognize that the people on the fringes of society, those are the vulnerable people who will suffer first. It's just tragic. It's tragic. And we need to think about that. Like, brown and black people are not just disproportionately more likely to commit crime. Lack of resources, poverty, lack of upward mobility creates, is the number one driver of crime. Like, And honestly, I think the Hispanic population will turn out differently in the future because that's what they learned. I would hear my my Hispanic relatives voted to deport themselves, voted to lose their birthright citizenship. I mean, it's mind boggling. And they would say, like, one of my aunts was like, I don't want the crime in Mexico to follow me here, kind of thing. And the point is, it's not going to. The poverty creates crime, right? When's the last time crime was highest in America? COVID.
Exactly.
People lost their jobs. You have to do something to survive, right? Crime's not following brown people around.
It's not the brown people. It's not women. It's not members of the LGBTQA community. It's the corporate interests who are sitting back on their yachts today. I literally saw someone talking about, listen, if you go after the rich people, that means they're not going to buy more yachts. And that's going to put people who work in the yacht industry out of business. Gee, I'm sorry about that. I would prefer to have the single mother have access to quality health care and food for her kid. I would prefer to prop up public schools more and overinvest. I would prefer that teachers are paid a living wage, better than a living wage, that they should be fought after. I want competition for teachers. I don't want the marginalized communities to continue to be impacted. I want the fucking rich to pay more, and they're laughing at their voters right now. They used you, MAGA voters. They used you. They used you as tools to get to where they are today, enriching themselves.
Stepped on you.
They stepped right over you.
Is a stepping stone to their own goals. And what is crime? But for some reason, as long as a rich white person is committing crime, as long as a corporation is committing crime, it's not a crime. Like that's what we have. We have people bribing Trump, corporations bribing Trump to have their cases dismissed. As long as you have money, you're not a criminal in America. That's how we're ordering society. But the person who needs to steal some bread or, some food to eat to survive, that's a criminal. But if you have money, you can buy your way out of crime. Is that the society we want to live in? People with value have money? No.
Justice Department seeking the unaliving penalty for Luigi Mangione in response to the crimes against humanity that United Healthcare committed against his mother and others. Keep in mind that industry, a profit center, is claim denial. It's literally on their P&L. Percentage of claims to be denied in fiscal year X. It's part of their P&L. And yet, brown people who are trying to feed their family, marginalized communities who are fighting for existence, are the criminals in our society.
It's automatic pre-auths, automatic denials too. Not even a human being denying
Literally,
what people
it's automated.
need. Just automated computer denying people what they need. Hey, we're not going to give you health care. We're not going to pay you a living wage. But if you commit a crime, we're going to demonize you. If you commit a crime to try to survive, we're going to demonize you. Meanwhile, you'll watch us all commit crimes every single day and buy our way out of them. Like, the hypocrisy in this society has got to end. But there's no silver lining to this. My heart breaks for Moth, but these are the times when you realize the power of community. You know what I mean? And the power that we have is our empathy, our vulnerability, and each other.
We've covered a lot today. Obviously, there's a lot more to cover. How would you like to?
Sorry, I'm just trying not to cry, but I know I've had I always have a great time where I come here. I honestly find it like a therapeutic experience when we do this together. I love this community. I love you guys. I appreciate you guys. I just can't say that enough. I talk about all the time, I was the child of a narcissist, and I come from a lot of trauma. So I truly feel after going to therapy for years, the first family I found has been on TikTok. So I just can't stress enough the value of the community we're building.
I agree, and I appreciate you saying that. I know how much time you invest in being prepared for your various shows, whether it be the People's Receipts or the broadcast or whatever you go on. And you've always been very generous with your time. And there's a reason that you spend as much time as you do, and as I do. It's because we care. We know that legacy media does not cover this. We know that legacy media just wants access. That's the reason that they won't call out Trump publicly, is because they
want profit. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Access and profit, right? Because they know it's about ratings, which is why they don't ask the hard questions. Like every single week, I submit for my press credentials every single week. It's my mission to try to get down into the press.
Day now.
I'm seriously, I'm going for it. But listen, today is one of those days that, we're going to have to just be aware of the impact, whether it be moth or many others that will be harmed today because of what we've just witnessed. And because of either 77 million people voting for, or entitled leftists voting against or not participating at all. Any last words, Felice?
Oh, I can't say it enough. Like this community, like I work hard for you guys because you guys work hard for me. Like it's a symbiotic relationship, like we're all going to get through this together. There's power in being vulnerable. There's power in being in a community. And like the number one problem with capitalism is it drives individualism, step on each other to get up. You know what I mean? And that's what we have to get away from. Like the power is in community and coming together.
Yeah, we say this often, right? We're all here on this crazy twisted timeline, potentially for a reason. I'm a big believer in karma. Right? I'm a big believer in it. And, we're here. Sadly, we have to witness the suffering, but I'm also hoping to be here to see the impact that we, the people, actually have. And I guess we're going to find out. I mean, if what you see in the stories that you hear, whether it be Moth or others, and if that does not motivate you to do something, then I don't know what will. If you're going to continue to stand by and watch humanity and the basic access to clean water and healthcare and food and shelter, and that doesn't motivate you to do something, then you might want to check yourself at the end of the day. Felice, it's been a pleasure as always. I really appreciate you.
Always a pleasure. I'm going to go have a little cry, and then 11:30 Pacific time, 2:30 Eastern, I will be doing the people's receipts. Come hang out. Let's spend some more time together. Love you all. Thank you for having me. You guys have such an amazing community. Later, Gators.
Later. Thank you, friend. I appreciate you. I don't know who is live currently. Matt's probably live. Are we going to send him over there? Johnny?